Michael Gould-Wartofsky went to Zuccotti Park nearly every day for 2 months, not as a protester, but as a social scientist. Now an adjunct professor at NYU, he says the Occupy movement energized a generation.
I think it did change the conversation, and it changed the political equation, and it brought something into American politics that had been missing for a long time, which I think is the voices of ordinary people.
He cites Black Lives Matter and the surprising success of Bernie Sanders' presidential campaign as examples of how Occupy carried on.
I think it was a turning point in the political conversation, and I think it will be remembered as such.
White, whose book is called The End of Protest, says we may never see anything like Occupy again.
I think that ultimately the problem with protests is that when you do street protests alone, there's a certain point at which there's nowhere else to go. Like, Occupy was the biggest, the loudest, and after a certain point, you can't be any bigger, you can't be any louder.
White says the only way activists can truly succeed is to win elections. In New York, Rick Leventhal, Fox News.
Well, from cell phones to delivery drones, advanced technology has made our lives easier. It's also helping enhance businesses across all industries as more companies invest in robots. But how many people could those machines put out of work? Claudia Cowan breaks down the rise of the robots.
Meet RoboStow, a 6-ton robot that lifts pallets of products 24 feet up onto a robotic drive unit that shuttles items around Amazon's massive storage warehouse in Northern California until another robot collects it for shipment.
The robotics within our Amazon fulfillment centers simply make our jobs more efficient, allowing our employees to use their skills towards more other sophisticated tasks.
It actually makes my job more easier.
Maybe so, but a recent study by the McKinsey Global Institute found that up to a third of the American workforce, as many as 54 million people, will have to switch occupations by 2030 to find work, thanks in large part to rapid advances being made in automation and robotic technology. Martin Ford is author of Rise of the Robots, Technology and the Threat of a Jobless Future.
There's a huge number of jobs out there, maybe half of jobs that are going to be susceptible to this.
Today, more than 260,000 robots work in restaurants, hotels, factories, and hospitals, performing tasks that are routine and predictable. But soon experts say they'll achieve a level of dexterity and visual perception only humans have had in the past.
We need to start thinking about what that means for the employment situation, for our whole economy, and for our society.
Back at Amazon's fulfillment center, hundreds of jobs for now, as hundreds of people work alongside dozens of robots. But one day, those numbers may flip. Some jobs will disappear, others will be created. And no question, the rise of the robots will be a game changer. In San Francisco, Claudia Cowan, Fox News.
A deadly storm slams the Philippines, triggering floods and mudslides. The death toll already in the hundreds. Was North Korea ramping up its rhetoric following the latest round of UN sanctions? Up next, the rogue regime's ominous defiant words and whether diplomacy is still an option.
It was a strong move forward. It was great to see China and Russia join us in that. It now needs to be followed up with diplomacy, where we get China and the United States working with the same strategy with North Korea to find a way that we can ease the tension and get North Korea to change directions.
Critics are all in for Molly's Game, and now it's been nominated for 2 Golden Globe Awards, including Best Actress Jessica Chastain and Best Screenplay Aaron Sorkin.
It's just a friendly game with higher stakes.
Molly's Game, rated R.
No matter how the markets change, at T. Rowe Price, our disciplined approach remains. Global markets may be uncertain, but you can feel confident in our investment experience around the world. Call us or your advisor. T. Rowe Price. Invest with confidence.
It's time to get smart about home security. Introducing Floodlight Cam by Ring, a motion-activated security light with an HD camera.
Don't even think about it.
That lets you know when anyone steps on your property. Illuminate every corner of your home with a ring of security. Smart enough to detect people and objects.
Hey, girls.
Hi, Dad.
With Floodlight Cam, you can stop crime before it happens. Protecting your home has never been easier. Now that's security in a whole new light. Available at ring.com.
This holiday season, families near you need your help. Visit redcross.org now to donate.
Wayfair, you got just what I need. It's the feeling of done and done. It's so much fun. Easy as a click, and done comes quick. It can even look crazy. That's fun and done, baby. Get a deal tons, or fancy looks fun. Just kick back, relax. With Wayfair, you're done. You know the feeling, yeah, that's the one. It's the feeling of done and done. It's so much.
Bring home the feeling at wayfair.com.
The day after chemo might mean a trip back to the doctor's office, just for a shot. But why go back there when you can stay home with Neulasta Onpro?
Strong chemo can put you at risk of serious infection, which could lead to hospitalizations. In a key study, Neulasta reduced the risk of infection from 17% to 1%, a 94% decrease. Applied the day of chemo, Neulasta Onpro is designed to deliver Neulasta the next day, so you can stay home. Neulasta is for certain cancer patients receiving strong chemotherapy. Do not take Neulasta if you're allergic to Neulasta or Neupogen, filgrastim. Ruptured spleen, sometimes fatal as well as serious lung problems, allergic reactions, kidney injuries, and capillary leak syndrome have occurred. Report abdominal or shoulder tip pain, trouble breathing, or allergic reactions to your doctor right away. In patients with sickle cell disorders, serious, sometimes fatal crises can occur. The most common side effect is bone and muscle ache.
So why go back there? If you'd rather be home, ask your doctor about Neulasta Onpro.
Rescuers are searching for survivors after a fierce typhoon hit the Philippines. More than 200 people are dead and some 70,000 are homeless. Intense rainfall in the mountains causing flash floods and landslides, which swept away homes and forced mass evacuations. And just last week, another tropical storm slammed the central Philippines, killing more than 50 people.
Tough talk from North Korea, blasting the latest round of UN sanctions, calling them an act of war. Those sanctions in response to the rogue regime's missile test late last month. Defense Secretary Mattis taking North Korea's threat seriously, warning our troops they must be at the top of their game and ready to go. Joining us now, Judith Miller, a Pulitzer Prize-winning author and journalist and a Fox News contributor. Judy, nice to see you.
See you, Mike.
What do you make of Defense Secretary Mattis telling U.S. troops to be top of your game in case there's a military conflict?
No, I think they're doing a good cop, bad cop routine. I mean, look, the president, Secretary Mattis, Secretary Tillerson are all aware of the ground reality in South Korea. We have 33,000 troops there on alert. We have 230,000 civilians. I was there a couple of months ago while we were actually practicing the extrication, the evacuation of American civilians there. No one wants a shooting war in the peninsula. China doesn't want it, Russia doesn't want it, the United States doesn't want it, but here's where I think the opening, the potential for progress lies, and that's with China. Even though we have now sanctioned North Korea until it's hard to imagine how we can do more than cut off 90% of their energy, which is what the these latest sanctions have done. We have yet to really put the economic squeeze on China. We have only sanctioned a couple of smaller banks. I think that if the Chinese understand that the alternative to negotiations, the alternative to a peaceful solution is military action, they may be willing to do more, because even though they sided with us on the sanctions resolution, they did not go as far as the Trump administration wanted to go. The United States wanted a total freezing of assets, and the Chinese and the Russians wouldn't go along with that, so we compromised.
Any sign of Beijing coming around, or is it going to take a lot more arm twisting, and can they be trusted on the North Korean issue?
Look, I think for China, this is a really crucial issue. North Korea is the state right on their border. They don't want to see a collapse of this regime. It's very clear that there's been some tension between the North Koreans and the Chinese. The North Koreans have gone out of their way. Kim Jong-un has gone out of his way to kind of annoy the Chinese. But there's a difference when it comes to understanding where China's strategic vital assets are, and they have already made it clear to the United States, China does not want American troops in the peninsula. That gives us some leverage. How much, we still don't know, but we've seen gradually a ratcheting up of the pressure. Every single month, the Trump administration has done something to increase the price that North Korea is paying for its continued ballistic missile tests. But remember, North Korea can do things too. The WannaCry cyber attack was a North Korean attack on hospitals, on banks, on companies all over the world. And remember too, the North Koreans are still holding 3 more Americans hostage in their prisons. We saw what happened to Otto Wembler, the 22-year-old University of Virginia student who was released in June. After a lot of negotiations, he died a week later. So both nations understand what's going on here with this very deadly, potentially dangerous, enormously dangerous game.
I'd like to get you to weigh in on another foreign policy matter briefly. Let's talk about the decision to sell defensive weapons to Ukraine, a topic discussed earlier on Fox News Sunday.
I talked to Secretary Tillerson earlier this week. I support the administration's decision to provide these types of defensive weapons for the Ukrainians. It's a clear message to Russia that we will not allow them to continue to compromise the sovereignty of Ukraine.
So, Judy, briefly, your take on the Ukraine issue?
I agree with that. I go to the Ukraine at least once a year to see what's going on. In the past month, the Russians have begun to escalate their military activity again. I think the decision to sell defensive weapons to Ukraine is long overdue. President Obama considered, nothing happened. Now, at last, I think President Trump has responded to President Poroshenko's legitimate need to be able to protect his own country.
Judy Miller, thanks for sharing your time and expertise with us.
Thank you, and happy holidays, Mike.
Santa's journey around the world is well underway, so where is he headed next? Ahead, how part of America's defense system is helping to track his path.
It starts with our radars that are on the northern Canada border as well as Alaska. And of course, we have our Santa cams that are strategically placed around the world so we can watch Santa anywhere he goes.
Before I had the shooting, burning, pins and needles of diabetic nerve pain, these feet liked to style my dog as a kid, loved motherhood, rain or shine, and were pumped to open my own salon. But I couldn't bear my diabetic nerve pain any longer, so I talked to my doctor.
and she prescribed Lyrica. Nerve damage from diabetes causes diabetic nerve pain. Lyrica is FDA approved to treat this pain, from moderate to even severe diabetic nerve pain. Lyrica may cause serious allergic reactions, suicidal thoughts or actions. Tell your doctor right away if you have these, new or worse depression, unusual changes in mood or behavior, swelling, trouble breathing, rash, hives, blisters, muscle pain with fever, tired feeling, or blurry vision. Common side effects: dizziness, sleepiness, weight gain, swelling of hands, legs, and feet. Don't drink alcohol while taking Lyrica. Don't drive or use machinery until you know how Lyrica affects you. Those who've had a drug or alcohol problem may be more likely to misuse Lyrica.
Now I have less diabetic nerve pain, and I love grooming the next generation.
Ask your doctor about Lyrica.
A crucial conservative voice. We look at the extraordinary journey of one of America's most influential figures, Charles Krauthammer. A Life That Matters, anchored by Brett Baer.
Did you know that a dirty CPAP system can make you sick? If you knew what could be growing in your mask and hose, it would keep you up at night. Now SoClean.com has released the world's first and only automated hands-free CPAP cleaner and sanitizer. With its patented design, SoClean is fast, effective, and hands-free, killing 99.9% of all CPAP germs. Try SoClean now through this special TV offer, free for 30 days. Just call 800-650-0494.
My health has improved. It's simple to use, and I'm not worried about infections.
SoClean works on all CPAP machines and popular masks, destroying CPAP bacteria, viruses, and germs without the daily hassle of washing your system by hand. Just place your mask in, close the lid, and in just minutes, voila, sanitized and ready to use. Try SoClean risk-free for 30 days. This is a limited time offer. Call now, 800-650-0494, or visit SoClean.com today.
I won this 55-inch TV for less than $30 on DealDash.com.
I got all this for less than $50 on DealDash.com.
These aren't actors, they're real people who got real savings at DealDash.com, the fair and honest bidding site. At DealDash.com, you can save up to 99%, but hurry, everything must go.
And shipping is always free.
Visit DealDash.com and start bidding today.
I bet you've never seen a bed like this. It's the new Craftmatic Legacy Rising Pillow Rest Adjustable Bed, featuring bedside power plugs, underbed nightlights, and more for less, up to 50% less than Tempur-Pedic, Sleep Number, and other adjustables. Call now. You gotta see how little they cost.
Do you have an idea for an invention or new product? Do you think companies would be interested in your idea? Do you want to try to get a patent? Call InventHelp now for free information.
Call 1-800-742-1037.
Pope Francis celebrating Christmas Eve Mass at the Vatican. The pontiff telling the faithful gathered in St. Peter's Basilica that Christmas is, quote, a time for turning the power of fear into the power of charity. The Pope is set to deliver his Christmas Day message from St. Peter's Square tomorrow afternoon. He usually touches on world events and trouble spots while aiming to strike a hopeful note as the year winds down.
Santa Claus is coming to town, and for anyone interested in tracking his journey, you can watch as he travels the world, and it's been done for more than 60 years. The North American Aerospace Defense Command, or NORAD, is using its high-tech resources to follow St. Nick's sleigh as it heads for U.S. airspace. But here's an important reminder from one NORAD commander. You want to listen.
They also need to know that they have to be in bed, and not just in bed, but they have to be sleeping. Sometimes we find out that Santa might pass up a house or two in a neighborhood. That's because the kids aren't asleep yet. And so, but he'll come back and he'll drop presents at the house as long as the kids are asleep.
Well, the President and First Lady getting involved with a Santa Tracker program today, answering children's phone calls.
What would you like more than anything else? What? Oh, that's good. Building blocks. That's what I always like too. I always loved building blocks. Now they make them better. But I always loved, what, does Casper love building things? Well, that's great. Well, I predict that Santa will bring you building blocks. So many you won't be able to use them all. Okay, maybe you'll use them fast. Who knows?
Wow, NORAD launched its Santa Tracker in 1955, and you can watch Santa in real time on NORAD's website, noradsanta.org. NORAD.org. Can you imagine being a little kid and calling NORAD tracker about Santa and getting President Trump on the phone?
And a smart kid asking for building blocks when the president's a famous builder here in New York.
That is a really good point. So maybe he'll get some special building blocks. I don't know. President Trump, he should definitely send some if you're watching. The president also mentioned to one of the little kids that he should come visit the White House, which would be an exciting thing.
How cool is that?
Yeah. Did you ever know that NORAD tracker and Santa Claus knows that if kids aren't sleeping, that he's just got to pass by their house?
I tell my kids all the time.
Yeah, see, this is very upsetting for little kids who want to stay up and try to track Santa, but NORAD also did say that he'll come back by once they are asleep. So if they are good boys and girls and they go to sleep, they're going to get their presents.
But when mom and dad say goodnight, go to bed.
Go to bed.
Could big changes be coming to the FBI? President Trump taking aim at reports that Deputy Director Andrew McCabe is planning to retire. This as the agency faces accusations of political bias. More on all of this ahead.
It's the most wonderful time of the year.
$50 gift card for them, $10 bonus card for you. Only at Applebee's. Now that's eating good in the neighborhood.
Any time of year is a bad time if you're an animal who's being abused or neglected. But winter can make the suffering even worse for these animals, many who've been left outside in the cold to die.
The endless suffering, endless pain, just lack of hope. There is no shortage of cruelty out there.
This winter, please help by visiting our website or calling this number and signing up with your $19 monthly donation. Every new donor we get means we can rescue more animals from harm and give them the warmth of loving arms. With your support, they'll get emergency medical care, food, and shelter.
Isn't that good? Get that thing off you?
We need 3,000 new donors in the next 30 days so we can rescue the animals who are fighting to stay alive this winter. 63 cents a day is all it takes to save an animal's life.
It's really the support that comes in from people that care that really is the engine that keeps us going.
Join in the next 10 minutes and we'll send you this free membership kit, including a magazine subscription, an animal photo, and this Animal Champion t-shirt. This is your last chance to get this limited edition item, so act now. It's a season of great suffering for too many animals. And if there was ever a time to help, this is it. Please go online or call now.
I tried hard to quit smoking. But when we brought our daughter home, that was it. Now I have Nicoderm CQ.
The Nicoderm CQ patch with unique extended release technology helps prevent your urge to smoke all day.
It's the best thing that ever happened to me. Every great why needs a great how.
We're on a mission to show the new Keurig K-Select brewer is the strong way to start your day. Pop that in there, hit strong, press brew, that's it. Strong, bold, rich. I feel like you're toying with me. Show me how strong you are. Dan! Lift me up, Dan, lift me up.
The soldier, the leader, the man. Inside the life of Andrew Jackson, from the critical decisions that help shape our nation to the controversies that threaten his legacy today. Brian Kilmeade's powerful look at America's 7th president tonight. Fox News Channel on Sirius XM. Your favorite shows on Channel 114. Plus, every story, every 15 minutes. Fox News headlines 24/7 at Channel 115.
It might seem hard to believe, but American troops have been celebrating Christmas in Afghanistan for 16 years now. Well, today they lit candles and they sang songs at Bagram Air Base. One soldier making the best of it with his family on his mind.
USO's got me dressed up like a snowman right now. A lot of people came out. It's great. Just want to wish Merry Christmas to my mom, dad, brother, and my 2 bulldogs.
Well, you know, Bagram is actually the first place I touched down when I deployed to Afghanistan in 2008. And I've deployed during holidays, but I deployed right after the holidays. And you see all the Christmas decorations. Everyone really does try to make the best of it.
God bless our men and women in harm's way who are a long way from family this Christmas season.
Yeah, it's really hard to be them and their families. So thank you to all of you. And that does it for us. Rob Schmidt is up next with Fox Report. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas.
There could be a major shakeup at the FBI. Deputy Director Andrew McCabe reportedly planning to retire as the Bureau faces growing allegations of political bias. I'm Rob Schmidt. This is the Fox Report. The Washington Post reporting that Andrew McCabe is set to step down in a few months once he becomes eligible for his pension. Republican critics have honed in on McCabe, grilling him for hours behind closed doors on his involvement in the Clinton email investigation and about one of his advisors who was caught sending anti-Trump text messages. President Trump suggesting McCabe had a conflict of interest because a Clinton ally contributed serious money to his wife's campaign when she ran for office in the state of Virginia. The president reacting to the news on Twitter, writing, quote, FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe is racing the clock to retire with full benefits, 90 days to go. And we're also getting reaction from former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee, who says the FBI may be in need of a serious reboot.
This is not about the politics of who they were for, who they were against. Here's the issue. Is there a double standard at the Justice Department where if you have a certain political leaning, you get away with things? If you don't, you end up like Mike Flynn and you get charged. If that's the case, then it's not just rotten in Denmark. Something is rotten in D.C., and it has to be cleaned out, fixed, and totally purged.
All right, Ellison Barber has more from Washington. Ellison, is Andrew McCabe out?
Well, Rob, for weeks there have been rumors about a potential McCabe retirement. Now Fox News has learned that acting FBI Director Andrew McCabe is eligible for retirement in March. As you said, a handful of outlets reported yesterday that McCabe would retire in the new year. We don't know that for sure, just that he's eligible. But those reports seem to have led to President Trump's most recent tweet storm. Trump attacked McCabe in those tweets. The White House defended the tweets on Fox News Sunday.
The president is saying we need to know that our civil servants are doing the honorable thing, and it's important the American people know what happened in that investigation.
McCabe spent 2 days and over 14 hours testifying on Capitol Hill last week. Democrats said the closed-door meetings and other attacks on the FBI are less about the integrity of the Bureau and more about the special counsel's investigation.
This hearing is part of an attempt at a lot of diversion from the real issue, which was the Russian attempt to subvert the last election, the possible collusion, well, the certain collusion by many members of the Trump campaign in it, the possible collusion by the president himself.
I think it's critically important that we respect the independence of the Department of Justice and the FBI. No one's above the law. Let Mr. Mueller do his investigation without interference from the president.
McCabe has not commented publicly on any of this. Rob?
And Ellison, the president's been busy on Twitter these last couple of days, also tweeted about an FBI official named James Baker. What are we hearing about him?
Well, James Baker was appointed to the FBI's general counsel back in 2014, and Fox News has learned that he was recently removed from the council. The council is a really big deal. They're read in on all of the investigations handled by the FBI. Sources are telling Fox News that Baker is not fired, but he is reassigned, and his reassignment may somehow be tied to a separate leak investigation. The Washington Post says sources tell them this is a normal part of a new director coming into the Bureau. Politico reported on Friday that Baker is tied to a Mother Jones journalist who first reported on the existence of the Trump dossier. That journalist says Baker was not his source. No word on who is replacing Baker. Fired FBI Director James Comey took to Twitter to defend Baker. He says he has served the country well for 25 years. Rob?
All right, everything's getting shaken up. We're going to go much deeper into all of this here in about 30 minutes. Ellison, thank you so much.
You bet.
All right, the president making Christmas calls to all over the world. He is in Mar-a-Lago now for Christmas. He started the day video chatting to our men and women overseas, letting them know that they are appreciated, especially on days like today when they are, some of them, thousands of miles away from their families for Christmas.
As we celebrate this most precious holiday, we're grateful for each of you who spend this Christmas away from your families and defend all of our families, our freedoms, and our flag. Every American heart is thankful to you, and we're asking God to watch over you and to watch over your families.
All right, Steve Harrigan is live in warm West Palm Beach tonight. Steve, what message did the president have for the military today?
Rob, the president took time out this morning to speak with individuals from each of the 5 military services. The main thrust of his message was gratitude, that the nation is thankful for those who are serving, often away from their families, overseas around the world, and sometimes in harm's way.
Today and every day, we're incredibly thankful for you and for your families. Your families have been tremendous, always underappreciated. The military families, the greatest people on earth.
The president also had praise for the military for crushing ISIS in Syria and Iraq, and he also singled out the Coast Guard for its work in relief efforts after natural disasters during the year, Rob.
Absolutely, and it's obviously it's Christmas Eve, so not all business in Florida today, though, right?
That's right. The president played golf this morning, the second day in a row, and then this afternoon he took part in a holiday tradition he called NORAD. Now, generally children call NORAD to check on the progress of Santa Claus throughout Christmas Eve. Instead, some of those children were randomly patched through to President Trump, who asked them what they wanted for Christmas.
Oh, that's good building blocks. That's what I always like, too. I always loved building blocks. Now they make them better. Well, I predict that Santa will bring you building blocks. So many you won't be able to use them all.
That 5-year-old boy thought he was going to find out where Santa was. Instead, he was patched through to the president, who said he could get more building blocks than he ever dreamed of. Rob, back to you.
That is something else. And he didn't ask for an iPhone. He just wants building blocks. We love that. All right, Steve, thank you so much. All right, Americans are traveling in record numbers this holiday season. AAA reporting millions packing a bag, going somewhere else. But as you can imagine, there are some roadblocks in the way, like snow, bad weather, traffic, and tight security as well. Let's see how it's going out there. David Lee Miller joins me now from New York. Hey, David.
Rob, this holiday season is expected to be a record breaker. An estimated 107.3 million travelers will be heading to Grandma's house or the like. Most will be doing so on the roads, despite the fact that gasoline prices are on average 28 cents higher than a year ago at $2.47 a gallon. Traffic has started to return to normal out west after parts of I-70 in Colorado were shut down because of a blizzard. Driving will be hazardous in parts of the Midwest and New England because of other storms. More people are flying this holiday season compared to last year. An airline trade group credits the improving economy. The busiest airports, we're told, are going to be Atlanta, Los Angeles, Chicago, Dallas, and New York's JFK. And if you've waited up until now to catch a flight, that was probably a good decision. Today and December 30th are expected to be the least congested days during the holiday season for air travel. And if all else fails, remember, it's the journey, not the destination. Rob?
Absolutely. 1/3 of Americans traveling. Thank you so much, David. And actually, we have one more question. Here in New York City, there's expected to be 6 million visitors during the holiday season. Security throughout the entire city has been beefed up. Resident and visitors alike will see more members of the NYPD, state police, and the National Guard. Radiation detection equipment and sniffer dogs will also be in use. This is not a question for David. Sorry about that, David. There is increased surveillance at bridges, tunnels, train stations, airports, and churches. Similar measures are in place throughout Europe as well. Security forces also on high alert in Paris and Rome and London. In France, nearly 100,000 security personnel will be on the streets between now and New Year's. That's an increase of 6,000 compared with last year. In Rome, metal detectors have been installed in the city's central square. Despite all the precautions, thieves this week stole the Christmas tree in the main shopping center in the city of Naples. So they got around all that security. All right, 9 minutes after the hour. Right now, California Governor Jerry Brown pushing back against the Trump administration, issuing a pair of controversial pardons. Plus, North Korea responding after getting hit with its toughest sanctions yet. This amid growing concern on whether Pyongyang can be deterred from its nuclear ambitions.
Even those who took a rosier view of the future for North Korea were amazed at how far they were able to get, both in terms of their ballistic missiles and nuclear warheads this year.
Your insurance company won't replace the full value of your totaled new car. The guy says, you picked the wrong insurance plan. No, I picked the wrong insurance company.
With new car replacement, we'll replace the full value of your car, plus depreciation. Liberty Mutual Insurance.
Patrick woke up with back pain, but he has work to do, so he took a leave. If he'd taken Tylenol, he'd be stopping for more pills right now. Only Aleve has the strength to stop tough pain for up to 12 hours with just one pill. Aleve, all day strong.
Forge of Empires. Develop your own city from the Stone Age to the future. Available in the App Store and at FOE.tv. Forge of Empires. Play now.
For every hour that you're idling in your car, you're sending about half a gallon of gasoline up in the air. That amounts over the course of a week to about 10 pounds of carbon dioxide.
Growth is good, but when it starts impacting our quality of air and quality of life, that's a problem. So forward-thinking cities like Sacramento are investing in streets that are smarter and greener.
The solution was right under our feet, asphalt, or to be more precise, intelligent asphalt. By embedding sensors into the pavement, as well as installing cameras on traffic lights, we'll be able to analyze the flow of traffic. That data runs across our network, and we use it to optimize the timing of lights so that traffic flows easier and travel times are shorter.
Who knew asphalt could help save the environment?
I've got plenty of time to work out, said no one, ever. That's why we invented the Bowflex Max Trainer, the world's first 14-minute total body workout, combining the low-impact motion of an elliptical with the calorie-burning power of a stepper.
The Max Trainer kicked my butt. A lot of sweat. I lost 15.5 pounds in 10 weeks. It is the fastest workout I've ever done.
14 minutes is all it takes, and you'd feel that burn. I cut my body fat in half with the Max Trainer.
The Max Trainer's console guides you through 14 minutes of intervals. Short bursts of effort, followed by longer periods of rest. You'll work smarter, not harder, burning up to 2.5 times the calories of other workouts.
I worked half as long on the Max Trainer as other machines, and I got better results. It's amazing.
You feel it in your arms, your core, everywhere. Thanks to Max, I'm in the best shape of my life.
Call or go to ordermaxtrainer.com to learn about great deals like 18-month special financing and how to save over $450, including free shipping. That's ordermaxtrainer.com.
All right, Christmas celebrations are well underway in Bethlehem, but tensions over the status of Jerusalem are still being felt. And Connor Powell is live from our Middle East Bureau tonight with more on that. Connor.
Rob, this is always a festive time in Bethlehem, but this Christmas season has been marred by weeks of violent protests by Palestinian Muslims and Christians following President Trump's decision to declare Jerusalem the capital of Israel. Today, with Christmas Eve celebrations well underway, Bethlehem has been peaceful, but the mood is much different than past years, with President Trump's decision front and center. Signs all over the place reading, "Jerusalem is the capital of Palestine." And Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas issued a Christmas message calling on the international Christian community to, quote, listen to the indigenous Christians from the Holy Land and reject President Trump's recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital. With the top Roman Catholic priest in the Holy Land, Monsignor Pier Battista Pizzaballa, who has been vocal in his criticisms of President Trump's decision, making a very public display by crossing through an Israeli military checkpoint to enter Bethlehem from Jerusalem. Despite today's calm, protests against the U.S. decision are expected to continue. Rob?
Okay, Connor, thank you so much. North Korea responding to a new round of economic sanctions passed by the UN, calling the measure an act of war. The U.S. drafted penalties were backed by the North's closest ally, China. Former UN Ambassador John Bolton warning that the time for a peaceful solution on that peninsula is running out.
Even those who took a rosier view of the future for North Korea were amazed at how far they were able to get, both in terms of their ballistic missiles and nuclear warheads this year. I think if we're going to consider the use of preemptive military force, we don't want to come close in estimating when they cross the finish line, because obviously the last thing we want if we strike is to them still have a nuclear capability.
Pyongyang also calling U.S. hopes for a denuclearized North Korea a, quote, pipe dream. All right, the terrorist suspect accused of opening fire at multiple locations in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, is originally from Egypt. How he was able to get into the United States, that's coming up. And an American citizen is arrested in Bali for pot possession, the extreme penalties that he faces. And is there a chance the president could get involved in this?
When it comes to heartburn, trust the brand doctors trust for themselves. Nexium 24-Hour is the #1 choice of doctors and pharmacists for their own frequent heartburn and all-day, all-night protection. When it comes to frequent heartburn, trust Nexium 24-Hour.
May I help you?
We just noticed your lawn here needed a little...
What my lawn needs is for you nitwits to get off of it, okay?
Introducing Floodlight Cam by Ring. Learn more at ring.com.
If you just sign that first
I'm
one
so
there.
sorry. I don't feel comfortable signing that.
I don't get the math here.
Was this the same car we talked about?
What's this dealer preparation fee?
I'm so sorry. This just is not
what we talked about.
Get the car without the car salesman. Carvana.com, the better way to buy a car.
QuickBooks introduces Rodney and his new business. He teaches lessons to Stanley, and that's kind of it right now. But Rodney knew just what to do. He got QuickBooks. It organizes all his accounts, so he knows where he stands in an instant. Ah, that's a profit. Which gave him the idea to spend a little cash on some brilliant marketing. Ha! Clever. Wow, look at all these new students. Way to grow, Rodney. Know where you stand instantly. Visit QuickBooks.com.
This fall, the most powerful pop culture insiders are coming to Page 6 TV. While all the others are sweeping the red carpets, we're inside collecting the real dirt to get the exclusive on the elusive. From A-listers to the Kardashian sisters, socialites to the hottest sites, and billionaires to the who lives theirs. This fall, it's who's on the inside that counts. Page 6 TV, weekdays. Check your local listings.
We go inside Eisenhower's final days in office and the final mission of an American giant. Watch as Brett Baer anchors 3 Days in January, tonight.
Last stop. I'm gonna get some beef jerky. Who's in?
You guys excited? Honey, you locked the front door, right?
What?
Introducing August, the smart lock that lets you securely lock and unlock your door with your phone, even when you're not at home.
It's locked now. Smooth, huh?
You can set August to auto unlock, so August knows when you arrive. And when you leave, August securely locks the door behind you, kind of like your own personal doorman. With August, create secure virtual keys for family and friends. Grant access for a few weeks or a few hours. You decide. And using the activity tracker on your August app, you'll know when your loved ones get home safely. Go to getaugust.com for a special offer just in time for the holidays. You'll get August Smart Lock with August Connect Wi-Fi Bridge for $50 off the suggested retail price. This special bundle is only available at getaugust.com. Order today. August, the key to your smart home.
Fox
Fox News Channel is bringing you an all-American New Year's celebration from New York City and around the country. Catch the biggest live performances and join the conversation using hashtag Fox News 2018. Kick back and watch the ball drop with your hosts Kennedy and Jesse Waters live from the heart of Times Square. Our must-see coverage begins New Year's Eve at 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on Fox News Channel.
All right, the Department of Homeland Security says a Pennsylvania terror suspect came to the U.S. through chain migration. The 51-year-old was a naturalized American citizen, originally from Egypt. Police say he went on a shooting spree Friday in downtown Harrisburg, apparently targeting police. Officers eventually shot and killed him. One state trooper was wounded, but she is expected to make a full recovery. All right, two men facing deportation now off the hook. California Governor Jerry Brown pardoning both of them 2 days before they were going to be taken out of the country. Will Carr is live in Los Angeles, and Will, these two are just a couple of many Christmas pardons in California, right?
Yeah, that's right, Rob. Two of around 130, the majority of those nonviolent and drug crimes. But these two in the spotlight because Governor Jerry Brown has really pushed back hard on the administration's immigration policies. We're talking about two men from Cambodia living in Northern California. Both came to the United States as kids. One was convicted in 2003 for felony joyriding. The other convicted in 1995 on a felony weapons link charge to gangs and a misdemeanor receiving stolen property. Both were picked up by federal authorities this past October in immigration raids and were set to be deported on Christmas, but a federal judge just stepped in and issued a temporary restraining order. In fact, one man, Moni Neth, has already been released from custody and is back with his family wearing an ankle monitor. The other, Radhanak Kong, is still in custody, but in his pardon, the governor writes, several individuals wrote in support of Mr. Kong, describing him as kind and generous and as a role model to those who face insurmountable challenges in their lives. Important to note that just because the men were pardoned doesn't necessarily mean they won't be deported. It's really just stalled the process. Both now have to ask the immigration courts to reopen their cases, Rob.
And Will, the very liberal Jerry Brown likes to go against the president's immigration policies, right?
Yeah, he's butted heads with the Trump administration. That's easy to say. In October, he actually signed sanctuary state legislation, which placed limitations on how state and local authorities can work with federal immigration authorities. That, of course, has sparked controversy across the country. There are numerous sanctuary cities like San Francisco, which made headlines with the Kate Steinle case, but California is the first so-called sanctuary state. Rob.
Okay. Will, thank you so much. Merry Christmas. An uncertain future for an American busted for marijuana possession in Bali. Indonesian police arresting Christian Beasley in August. He fled prison this month, but was recaptured and then paraded in front of the press in shackles, as you can see here. His family calling for President Trump to now get involved. William Lajeunesse has that story.
In my country, not a crime to use ganja. I have license.
A 32-year-old Christian Beasley is not in the U.S., but Bali, where marijuana remains illegal.
I need help. I need rehab. Not 4 years or more in jail.
Lawyers say no country is obligated to honor a medical prescription from another, though most do. Marijuana presents a legal challenge since many countries consider it an illicit drug.
We've got 5 months. The defense has presented nothing. Even the documents haven't been translated or anything.
Hank Gizeki worries Indonesia is parading his son as a poster child who flaunted Islamic law in tourist-friendly Bali.
I was very encouraged the other day that the president was pointing out that his new administration has been very good at helping Americans who have been kind of finding difficulties in foreign lands.
The State Department claims the U.S. does not get involved in courts of sovereign countries. However, the Trump White House successfully has.
President Trump sees this as one of those areas where his deal-making ability, his ability to negotiate, his ability to use his personal persuasive powers is at a zenith.
Trump personally intervened to free 3 UCLA basketball players caught stealing in China. He also won the release of Fan Gillis, an American businesswoman imprisoned there for 2 years. In April, Egypt released this American aid worker after Trump appealed to President El-Sisi. His intervention also freed this former CIA agent from a Portuguese prison and Otto Warmbier from North Korea.
President Trump probably has taken a more visibly active interest in the fate of Americans overseas in his first year. But, you know, the number of Americans who travel abroad is enormous, and he can't be responsible for all of them.
On Wednesday, Gizicki reached out to the White House.
They have a volunteer phone service there, which is awesome. She was going to try and run it up the line, so I don't know if anything's happened on that yet.
Drug crimes could be a tough sell legally and politically for the White House. On the other, Americans should not be subject to abuse and extortion in prison. Now, Bali accuses Beasley of possessing just under 6 grams of pot, for which he faces up to life in prison or even death as a trafficker. In Los Angeles, William Lajeunesse, Fox News.
All right, it was a national movement that took the country by storm. Occupy Wall Street. Thousands of people took to the streets to protest corporate greed. So where is that movement now? Plus, more reaction to the FBI's #2 official reportedly planning to retire. The news drew some pointed reaction from President Trump, the White House defending his comments.
The president believes that the American people have a right to know as to what happened with that investigation. He's making the point that we need to make sure there's no bias. And I think there's serious concerns about whether or not there was or was not.
Do you need the most trusted battery this holiday? Maybe not. Maybe you could trust the world would be just as happy without them. Or you could just trust Duracell.
It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas.
My bladder leakage was making me feel like I couldn't spend time with my grandson. Now Depend FitFlex has their fastest absorbent material inside, so it keeps me dry and protected. Go to depend.com, get a coupon, and try them for yourself.
The holiday season is filled with joy and excitement, and it's when families spend precious time together at home. But some children won't be able to go home for the holidays because they've just been diagnosed with cancer. For these children and their families, the holiday season is a time of heartache and worry.
There was a lot of shock and a lot of disbelief.
Watching him go through all of this, it just breaks your heart.
This holiday season, help give these children hope by joining St. Jude Children's Research Hospital with your $19 monthly donation. St. Jude fights every day to save the lives of children with cancer. And with your monthly gift, you'll help us continue the life-saving research and treatment that these kids need.
We thank God every day for St. Jude and for people that support St. Jude.
No family will ever receive a bill from St. Jude for treatment, travel, housing, or food, because all a family should worry about is helping their child live.
We are so thankful to be here.
They give you your child back.
Join with your credit or debit card right now, and we'll send you this St. Jude t-shirt that you can proudly wear to show your support. It's that time of year to help others in need, and your $19 monthly gift will mean everything to a child this holiday.
You don't know my child, but your contribution is saving his life and many lives.
Please help St. Jude fight childhood cancer. Go online or call now.
The day after chemo might mean a trip back to the doctor's office, just for a shot. But why go back there when you can stay home with Neulasta Onpro?
Strong chemo can put you at risk of serious infection. Neulasta helps reduce infection risk by boosting your white blood cell count, which strengthens your immune system. In a key study, Neulasta reduced the risk of infection from 17% to 1%, a 94% decrease. Applied the day of chemo, Neulasta Onpro is designed to deliver Neulasta the next day. Neulasta is for certain cancer patients receiving strong chemotherapy. Do not take Neulasta or Neupogen, filgrastim. Ruptured spleen, sometimes fatal, as well as serious lung problems, allergic reactions, kidney injuries, and capillary leak syndrome have occurred. Report abdominal or shoulder tip pain, trouble breathing, or allergic reactions to your doctor right away. In patients with sickle cell disorders, serious, sometimes fatal crises can occur. The most common side effect is bone and muscle ache.
So why go back there? If you'd rather be home, ask your doctor about Neulasta Onpro.
I'm Rob Schmidt. This is the Fox Report. It is the bottom of the hour. Time for the top of the news. The Washington Post reporting that Deputy FBI Director Andrew McCabe will retire in the coming months once he becomes eligible for his pension. Republican critics have taken issue with McCabe, grilling him for hours behind closed doors on his involvement in the Clinton email investigation and about one of his advisors who was caught sending anti-Trump text messages. President Trump suggesting that McCabe had a conflict of interest because a Clinton ally contributed serious money to his wife's campaign when she ran for office in Virginia. All of this prompting a growing number of conservatives to accuse the agency of being biased.
There are some people out there who are starting to question what happened here. These are fair questions. If America loses faith in the FBI, the most powerful federal law enforcement agency in this country, we're going to be in a really, really dark place. A house cleaning has to happen right now, or we're going to all be in a lot of trouble.
All right, so let's dig into this a little bit. Let's bring in Griffin Connolly, reporter for Roll Call. Griffin, thanks so much for joining us here on Christmas Eve. Does the FBI have a legitimate problem with bias here, or is this simply everybody's got an opinion and we're just seeing them for the first time?
Yeah, well, first off, thanks, Rob, for having me on. I hope you're enjoying your holiday season so far.
Sure.
You know, it's an interesting thing here with Deputy Director McCabe. This is sort of, like we've seen, all throughout 2017. It's a very partisan issue, and it's an issue. It's a situation that sort of predates the president's Christmas Eve flurry, if you will, of tweets. But I guess you could sort of say the president today sort of drew a line in the sand with Republicans on one side, House Republicans on one side, and Democrats sort of wholesale on the other. And a couple of those Republicans who have sort of taken charge and sort of trying to unearth something here are Chairman Trey Gowdy of the Oversight Committee and Chairman Devin Nunes of the Intelligence Committee in the House. And they had conversations with Deputy Director McCabe all throughout the week last week. And, on the other side, you've got Democrats who are saying this is sort of, just another House Republican effort to undermine the credibility of institutions like the FBI and the Justice Department. So, it's really sort of a fitting wrap-up for 2017.
Yeah, and it's always going to be that way. Both sides are going to try and play the opposite tone on it and do whatever they can, and we understand that. It's funny though when you think about the claims that the president has made over the last year or however long. I mean, the first one that was really jarring was the one where he said he was being spied on by the Obama administration within Trump Tower, and so many people thought he's crazy. And then he made this claim of bias at the FBI, and people said the same thing. And now we're starting to see a lot of these claims come to fruition in some way or another. What do you make of that? I mean, is it interesting to see something like the FBI so vulnerable to this when they have so much power? I mean, it's like a couple of people could have swung an election if the allegations are true.
Well, it's again, that's an interesting question, and sort of like I had mentioned in the previous question. That's something that the House, a couple of House chairmen are looking into, and the Democrats sort of reject wholesale. For instance, Senator Mark Warner gave a speech, a pretty foreboding speech on the Senate floor Thursday before everybody left for break, sort of saying, drawing a red line, was the term that he used, saying that, the president is, in his opinion, attempting to undermine the FBI, certain ongoing FBI investigations, and Republicans are firing back saying, hey, this is something we need to look into. This is absolutely something we need to explore more. This is not just a partisan attack. So, again, there are definitely two sides of this coin.
Well, the defenders of the FBI and of James Comey in particular always point to the fact that, if there was a big bias here and there was a big push to get Hillary Clinton elected in last year's election, why did Comey reopen that investigation just days before the election when he found the Huma Abedin, the Anthony Weiner email thing and the laptop? That's their defense. Is that a pretty solid defense that the FBI was acting appropriately and trying to do this as straight and honest as they could?
Sure. Well, that's the line they're sticking with, and I think that's the line they're going to continue to stick with. They see this as sort of a partisan attack, sort of intended to undermine these ongoing investigations. And a couple of Democratic operatives I've spoken with sort of think that Republicans see the Trump administration and various factions there as sort of having a target on their back, and sort of trying to chop that arrow in half by sort of undermining these investigations. Sort of the arrow before that hits that target, they're trying to chop that in half. So yeah, it's intriguing.
In all the people that you've talked to and everything that you've seen, and I've been following this everywhere too, and we've talked so much about it, has anybody given a straight, good answer as to why James Comey came out in that press conference and suggested that Hillary Clinton not be charged? And has anybody given a straight answer as to why the wording was changed in that speech that he gave to kind of lessen what she had done wrong, in a lot of people's opinion? Has anybody really answered that in a way that you thought was honest and good?
Well, there's no one that I've talked to that has really mentioned anything of that sort. I just think, in terms of Director Comey, Democrats are sort of sticking with their general line that they've been sticking with since that story was sort of national headline news, and Republicans are obviously here still questioning and still questioning whether there is bias in these sort of long-time justice institutions.
Yeah. What do you think the insurance policy was? The big text that we got from Peter Strzok that talked about the insurance policy in Andy's office, who we've learned is Andrew McCabe. What do you really think that insurance policy was? That seemed to be the most damning text message in their Strzok.
Right. That's not really for me to speculate on personally. I think a number of Democratic lawmakers and even strategists, including people who've been on your network today, have said that that was inappropriate, and he was removed from that investigation, that part of the FBI, and that was appropriate. That was an appropriate response within the FBI, and obviously. Over on the other side, Republican lawmakers definitely thought that that was something that had to be addressed. Absolutely.
Of all of this, everything we've learned here in regards to the FBI, in regards to the Russia investigation and the Hillary Clinton investigation, what has surprised you the most about how this has all developed?
What's really surprised me the most is just the fact that it has become such a partisan issue. When you think of the FBI, you think of the Justice Department, that is supposed to be sort of this nonpartisan, neutral, upholding law and order kind of standard, but it's become something, here in 2017, and I'm sure moving on, after the new year, that has become very polarizing. It's not often that we hear about the FBI and the different players at the top levels of the FBI, being such divisive figures.
Yeah. Well, we understand that Bob Mueller's investigation into the Russia collusion could soon be coming to an end. And that'll just be endlessly interesting to see what develops of that and how far that goes. Griffin, thanks so much for coming on tonight. I know it's Christmas Eve. We appreciate it, and Merry Christmas.
Thanks, Rob. Same to you.
All right. Well, 6 years ago, demonstrators filled cities across America shouting, "We are the 99%. The Occupy Wall Street movement was full of people speaking up against corporate greed, demanding that bigwigs share the wealth. So what happened to that movement? Rick Leventhal takes a look.
It began September 17, 2011 in Zuccotti Park in New York City, just a few blocks from the financial capital of the world. Inspired in part by Arab Spring protests overseas. Wall Street is our street! Wall Street! Occupy Wall Street was a social movement against income inequality, corporate greed, and the influence of big business in politics. All day, all week, Occupy Wall Street! Almost overnight, the diverse group of demonstrators grew to tens of thousands, spreading to hundreds of cities across America.
We are the 99%!
And more than 80 countries worldwide. But patience among city leaders and law enforcement wore thin, and authorities began arresting protesters and clearing their encampments. And roughly 2 months after it launched, the Occupy movement faded into winter.
Occupy Wall Street! All day, all week!
Well, I call it like a constructive failure.
Michael White helped launch Occupy with a single tweet from the offices of a Canadian magazine in the summer of 2011, envisioning it as a leaderless movement, a revolution for the people, by the people.
Obviously, I think that it did a lot of good things. I think that it changed the discourse about income inequality. It trained a new generation of activists. But did we give new power to the 99%? Did we change how, democracy functions in America? No.
The crowds that fueled its initial success eventually helped lead to its demise.
You had all these people saying, whose streets are streets?
Yeah.
And yet they were getting in the way of people who also own these streets.
Social protest is one of the things that is necessary for the progress of democracy, and I don't think that you can have protests without people getting upset and getting their disrupted and that kind of stuff.
Occupy Wall Street evolved into something else, I would say. It morphed into something else.
Michael Gould-Wartofsky went to Zuccotti Park nearly every day for 2 months, not as a protester, but as a social scientist. Now an adjunct professor at NYU, he says the Occupy movement energized a generation.
I think it did change the conversation, and it changed the political equation, and it brought something into American politics that had been missing for a long time, which I think is the voices of ordinary people.
He cites Black Lives Matter and the surprising success of Bernie Sanders' presidential campaign as examples of how Occupy carried on.
I think it was a turning point in the political conversation, and I think it will be remembered as such.
White, whose book is called The End of Protest, says we may never see anything like Occupy again.
I think that ultimately the problem with protests is that when you do street protests alone, there's a certain point at which there's nowhere else to go. Like, Occupy was the biggest, the loudest, and after a certain point, you can't be any bigger, you can't be any louder.
White says the only way activists can truly succeed is to win elections. In New York, Rick Leventhal, Fox News.
All right, a federal judge ruling that an American citizen accused of fighting for ISIS has a right to an attorney. The unidentified man was detained on the battlefield in Syria months ago and is being held as an unlawful enemy combatant. No charges have yet been filed. The judge also denying the Pentagon's request to dismiss this case. Crews responding to the scene of a deadly plane crash. The details on that, including what appears to have caused this fiery wreck. And also Christmas Eve Mass at the Vatican, the message that Pope Francis delivered to the faithful. Stay tuned.
In the 65th week, according to the smell of the incense.
Hi, I'm the one clocking in when you're clocking out, sensing your every move and automatically adjusting to help you stay effortlessly comfortable. I can even help with a silent night. Does your bed do that? I don't actually talk, but I can tell you how you slept. I'm the new Sleep Number 360 Smart Bed. Let's meet at a Sleep Number store.
I used to have more hair. I used to have more color. And I used to have cancer. I beat it. I did. Not alone. I used to have no idea what the American Cancer Society did. Research, yeah, but also free rides to chemo and free lodging near hospitals. I used to maybe give a little, then I got so much back. I used to have cancer.
Please give at cancer.org.
I've got plenty of time to work out, said no one, ever. That's why we invented the Bowflex Max Trainer, the world's first 14-minute total body workout, combining the low-impact motion of an elliptical with the calorie-burning power of a stepper.
The Max Trainer kicked my butt. A lot of sweat. I lost 15.5 pounds in 10 weeks. It is the fastest workout I've ever done.
14 minutes is all it takes, and you'd feel that burn. I cut my body fat in half with the Max Trainer.
The Max Trainer's console guides you through 14 minutes of intervals, short bursts of effort, followed by longer periods of rest. You'll work smarter, not harder, burning up to 2.5 times the calories of other workouts.
I worked half as long on the Max Trainer as other machines, and I got better results. It's amazing.
You feel it in your arms, your core, everywhere. Thanks to Max, I'm in the best shape of my life.
Call or go to ordermaxtrainer.com to learn about great deals like 18-month special financing and how to save over $450, including free shipping. That's ordermaxtrainer.com.
To everyone else, I look like everyone else. But on the inside, I feel chronic, widespread pain. Fibromyalgia may be invisible to others, but my pain is real.
Fibromyalgia is thought to be caused by overactive nerves. Lyrica is believed to calm these nerves.
I'm glad my doctor prescribed Lyrica.
For some, Lyrica delivers effective relief for moderate to even severe fibromyalgia pain and improves function. Lyrica may cause serious allergic reactions, suicidal thoughts or actions. Tell your doctor right away if you have these, new or worse depression, unusual changes in mood or behavior, swelling, trouble breathing, rash, hives, blisters, muscle pain with fever, tired feeling, or blurry vision. Common side effects: dizziness, sleepiness, weight gain, swelling of hands, legs, and feet. Don't drink alcohol while taking Lyrica. Don't drive or use machinery until you know how Lyrica affects you. Those who've had a drug or alcohol problem may be more likely to misuse Lyrica.
With less pain, I can do more with my family.
Talk to your doctor today. See if Lyrica can help.
Fox News Channel on Sirius XM. Your favorite shows on Channel 114. Plus, every story, every 15 minutes. Fox News headlines 24/7 at Channel 115.
5 people are dead following a small plane crash in central Florida. The Cessna taking off early this morning from an airport about 45 miles east of Tampa. It was en route south to Key West. Authorities say the pilot, 2 of his daughters, and a son-in-law and a family friend are among the dead. They also say that fog likely contributed to that crash.
One of our helicopter pilots was in the hangar, heard the plane starting to take off, and thought to himself, my gosh, I can't believe someone's trying to take off in this weather. And he said it was just seconds later that he heard the change in the pitch of the blades and the impact at the north end of the airport, not very far from our hangar.
The NTSB and the FAA are sending teams to the site of that crash to investigate. Well, Pope Francis celebrating Christmas Eve Mass at the Vatican. The pontiff telling the faithful gathered in the beautiful St. Peter's Basilica that Christmas is, quote, a time for turning the power of fear into the power of charity. The Pope is set to deliver his Christmas Day message from St. Peter's Square. All right, moms and dads facing off against online scalpers to buy the hottest toys this holiday season. But the scalpers have a big advantage, so-called Grinch bots that can snap up toys in the blink of an eye. Molly Line has more.
High-tech software is the new threat to holiday joy, making it tougher than ever for mom or dad to find that must-have toy at its regular retail price.
We're having sales that are popping up on major retailers that are then sold out in seconds.
Cyber scalpers resell the goods and reap the ill-gotten gains. This year's top bot target, Fingerlings. Laura Oliver runs a deal-watching website.
I've definitely had readers on frugalchick.com that have told me that they've had their fingerling in their cart, and then when they've gone to check out, it's been gone.
The pint-sized critters should cost about $18, but they're sold out at most toy stores, now selling online for as much as $1,000. Another target, the Super Nintendo NES Classic Edition. Out of stock on most sites, but available on eBay for double the money. Many retailers try to block the bots, some setting online flags and purchase limits.
How do you know the difference between a grandma with 14 grandkids who all get the same holiday gift and, you know, somebody who's a bad actor and trying to resell this merchandise somewhere else? It's very difficult.
New Mexico Senator Tom Udall is among those working to expand a law that already prevents bots for the use of mass purchasing theater tickets or concert tickets. But it'll be too late for this Christmas. Laura Oliver suggests that instead of paying the markup, that scalpers markup online and giving those Grinches any satisfaction, to consider writing an IOU. In Boston, Molly Line, Fox News.
That is something else. All right, it is looking like a white Christmas in many parts of the nation. In the Midwest, in Ohio, the National Weather Service issuing a winter weather advisory through tomorrow morning. This is the scene in Cleveland with snow in the forecast there for the next few days. It's always fun this time of the year. And sadly, more rain than snow in Virginia. Some last-minute choppers getting drenched with downpours and strong winds right there in the D.C. suburbs. And in upstate New York, people are already seeing up to 4 inches of snow in that beautiful part of the country, making for tough conditions on the roads. Forecasters predicting more snowfall tonight and into Christmas Day tomorrow. So that's some good news. All right, a little boy with a big talent. How one kid managed to stop shoppers dead in their tracks. You're going to want to stick around for this story. Something else. Plus, gifts that keep on giving as people hit the malls. Others are buying goats and alpacas as gifts. We'll tell you why. Stay tuned.
This is our workshop. These are our lights. Performance is our tradition. And this is the TLX. Take advantage of some of the best offers of the year at the Acura Seasonal Performance event going on now.
Lease the 2018 TLX for $299 a month for well-qualified customers. Visit your local Acura dealer today.
I will not allow nobody to kill my brother twice.
What do you do for work?
I worked for my father on his pineapple plantations in the Philippines.
I'm a fashion student.
I'm a stockbroker. I'm building the sets for the Titanic.
I was married.
You can't do it, can you?
Can't what?
Stop lying.
Andrew Cunanan, 27 years old. He's killed 4 men.
The Assassination of Gianni Versace premieres Wednesday, January 17th on FX.
A crucial conservative voice. We look at the extraordinary journey of one of America's most influential figures, Charles Krauthammer. A Life That Matters, anchored by Brett Baer.
Okay, you're all set, ma'am. Oil's changed, tires rotated.
Rotate them again. Jim, if you can make sure to file these TPS reports before you leave, that'd be great.
No problem, Chief.
Mr. Anders, is Mr. Anders here?
Someone else can go.
With TV this good, customers and employees will never want to leave. Redefine business as usual with DirecTV for Business.
Do you have an idea for an invention or new product? Do you think companies would be interested in your idea? Do you want to try to get a patent? Call InventHelp now for free information.
Call 1-800-742-1037.
I bet you've never seen a bed like this. It's the new Craftmatic Legacy Rising Pillow Rest Adjustable Bed, featuring bedside power plugs, under-bed nightlights, and more for less. Up to 50% less than Tempur-Pedic, Sleep Number, and other adjustables. Call now. You gotta see how little they cost.
Behavioral health issues are some of the largest growing challenges for children and teens. They're also some of the least talked about and least funded, so our children struggle alone. That's why Big Lots is supporting Nationwide Children's Hospital to give these issues the attention and funding they so greatly deserve. With a new pavilion, Nationwide Children's will be home to the largest behavioral health and research center on any children's hospital campus. Together, we can provide hope.
Coming up, America's new secret pleasure, Deal Dash.
Another package from Deal Dash.
Thanks. I won!
DealDash.com auctions thousands of cool new products and offers a 90-day money-back guarantee on your first bid pack purchase.
Want to go shopping? Can't. I'm in the middle of a really hot auction for some super cute stuff. I won! Woohoo! Mom, what'd you win?
Sign up for exciting deals and always free shipping. Go to DealDash.com.
Fox News Channel is bringing you an all-American New Year's celebration from New York City and around the country. Catch the biggest live performances and join the conversation using hashtag Fox News 2018. Kick back and watch the ball drop with your hosts Kennedy and Jesse Waters live from the heart of Times Square. Our must-see coverage begins New Year's Eve at 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on Fox News Channel.
A 10-year-old boy going viral this Christmas after serenading a supermarket. Kid's got some pipes. His name is Caleb Courtney. His mom says because he has autism, he doesn't get nervous singing in front of strangers. This video has racked up more than 300,000 views online. Caleb has also apparently gotten some interest from a record producer as well. That is something. All right, it is the time of the year when people, I should say, are most generous. And a couple of special charities are showing us some unique ways to give back. One of them by donating farm animals like goats. Our Lauren Green has more.
The World Vision Gift Catalog. There, they find all kinds of meaningful gifts Mom will love.
Goats and alpacas may not be on Mom's wish list, but they're some of the biggest sellers in World Vision's catalog. The glossy presentation, rivaling any retailers, is one way the 70-year-old charity reaches potential donors. Last year, the catalog brought in $30 million, helping the neediest live better lives.
One of the things I like most about giving a goat or an alpaca or a chicken or a duck is that you help
communities lift themselves out of poverty. So some people say they're miracles with fur, and some people talk about the animals as the gifts that keep on giving. But folks really take ownership of the development in their community.
Bad water and a lack of toilets kills more people than all the wars in the world.
One of World Vision's partners is Charity Water, a group that builds clean water wells all over the world. Its founder, Scott Harrison, has become the standard bearer for how to tap into millennials' giving spirit through Twitter and Instagram. The former club promoter had an epiphany in his late 20s on a visit to Liberia that turned his life around.
I saw people dying because they didn't have clean water to drink, and I had been selling, expensive bottles of water in nightclubs for $20 to people who wouldn't even open them sometimes. 660 million people are living globally without this thing we take for granted.
Holiday season giving is the most profitable time for charities and the people they help. But more importantly, it's a counterweight to commercialism, bringing the true meaning of Christmas. In New York, Lauren Green, Fox News.
All right, the holiday spirit is all around us. One group of teens taking a moment to give back to a janitor who has really had their back. What they gave him coming up.
Just hear those sleigh bells jingling, ring ting tingling too. Come on, it's lovely weather for a sleigh ride together with you. Outside the snow is falling and friends are calling you.
I am totally blind. And Non-24 can make me show up too early or too late or make me feel like I'm not really there. Talk to your doctor and call 844-234-2424.
Booking a flight at the last minute doesn't have to be expensive. Just go to Priceline. It's the best place to book a flight a few days before my trip and still save up to 40%. Just tap and go. For the best savings on flights, go to Priceline.
This holiday season, the frigid temperatures won't show any mercy on the animals who've been left outside in the cold to die. Animals who've been abandoned and neglected, who are freezing with no shelter. And every moment they spend suffering could be one moment too late.
So tender and mild, sleep in heavenly peace.
We need your support more than ever this season. Thousands of lives are on the line, so please call this toll-free number or visit joinaspca.org with your $19 monthly gift now. We need 3,000 new donors in the next 30 days so we can rescue more animals this winter. They're fighting to stay alive. Please find it in your heart this holiday season to help them. Go online or call now and join our fight to rescue these innocent animals from cruelty. And because the situation is so urgent, we're asking you to join in the next 10 minutes. And if you do, we'll send you this free membership kit, including this Animal Champion t-shirt. This is your last chance to get this limited edition item, so act now. It's the season of giving, and your monthly donation could be the greatest gift you give to an animal who needs you. Go online or call now.
What makes this simple salad the best simple salad ever? Heart-healthy California walnuts. The best simple veggie dish ever? California walnuts. The best simple dinner ever? Great tasting, heart-healthy California walnuts. So simple, so good. Get the recipes at walnuts.org.
Well, Santa Claus is coming to town, and for anybody interested in tracking his journey, you can watch as he travels the world tonight. The North American Aerospace Defense Command, or NORAD, uses its high-tech resources to follow St. Nick's sleigh as it heads for U.S. airspace. But here's an important reminder from one NORAD commander.
They also need to know that they have to be in bed, and not just in bed, but they have to be sleeping.
Sometimes we find out that Santa might pass up a house or two in a neighborhood. That's because the kids aren't asleep yet. And so, but he'll come back and he'll drop presents at the house as long as the kids are asleep.
And your kids just bolted out of the room straight to their bedrooms, didn't they? The President and First Lady getting involved with the Santa Tracker program today, answering kids' phone calls.
What would you like more than anything else? What? Oh, that's good. Building blocks, that's what I always like too. I always loved building blocks. Now they make them better. But I always loved, does Casper love building things? Well, that's great. Well, I predict that Santa will bring you building blocks. So many you won't be able to use them all. Okay, maybe you'll use them fast. Who knows?
Oh, what fun that is. NORAD launched its Santa Tracker in 1955. You can watch Santa in real time at noradsanta.org, right there on your screen. A bunch of Michigan high schoolers gave thanks to a hard-working janitor. They got him a Christmas. So surprised, we had reaction.
You always go above and beyond for them. You're always like just happy. We just wanted to give you something for Christmas.
I love you guys. Man, almighty. I need some really bad, too.
Now you know why.
That's great. The gift, a pair of work boots. The Facebook video has been viewed more than 100,000 times. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. We'll see you later.
This hour, when he talks, Washington listens. Charles Krauthammer, his uniquely American story. His journey from MD to the Pulitzer Prize. How he overcame a devastating accident with a determination to lead. A life that matters. Hello, I'm Brett Baer, and I hope you'll enjoy watching this Fox News reporting special as much as we enjoyed making it. Fox viewers know where Charles Krauthammer sits on the panel, and they probably know his position on most issues. But we bet there's a lot you don't know about the all-star panelist, syndicated columnist, Harvard-trained psychiatrist, and even occasional baseball analyst. We think you should, even if the doctor has a different opinion. You were a little reticent when we started this project. What's your thought about all this?
I don't like it.
Full disclosure, I've been trying to convince Charles Krauthammer to sit for an interview for some time. Secretary Kerry on the Hill today talking about not one where he simply shares his thoughts on the news of the day.
I suspect there's going to be another twist here.
But one where he pulls back the curtain and reveals, beyond the extraordinary writer and influential thinker, the life of an intensely private man.
Look, when I say I don't like it, I'm not averse to the spotlight. I'm not going to pretend somebody who's on television every night doesn't enjoy it. But when it comes to interior life, it's not something that's very interesting to me.
More disclosure. Charles Krauthammer is a colleague and friend. But he only agreed to cooperate on a Fox News reporting profile reluctantly as part of the publicity campaign for, yes, a new book. Things That Matter is not a confessional memoir or scandalous kiss and tell. It's a collection of newspaper and magazine pieces from the Pulitzer Prize-winning columnists. Or maybe it's more than that.
Are you decoding my book?
I am decoding it right now.
Like it's entirely about me, but it's all written in hieroglyphics.
Well, it's not quite as impenetrable as hieroglyphics. Let's start with part one of your book, and it is titled Personal. And in there, the first column is really an incredibly moving piece about your brother. Marcel Krauthammer died of cancer. He was 59. Charles writes this about his older brother. Quote, "He taught me most everything I ever learned about every sport I ever played. He taught me how to throw a football, hit a backhand, grip a 9-iron, field a grounder, dock a sailboat in a tailing wind, and how we played. It was paradise." Tell me about that.
It was a paradisical childhood. My brother and I were inseparable. He was 4 years older, which is why this was a priceless gift. He always insisted I be included, so I got used to being around the big boys and taking the slings and arrows, and that's how you get toughened up. My parents were from Europe. He was American, my brother. Born in Brazil, but that's a long story. But American, and he made me an American.
That long story short. Krauthammer's mother, Thea, is from Belgium. His father, Shulam, was a real estate developer from what is now a province of Ukraine. Both Jews who'd left World War II Europe. They met in Havana, moved to Rio, and eventually New York City, where Charles was born in 1950. When he was 5, the Krauthammers moved to Montreal. But they spent summers at the family cottage in Long Beach, New York. Charles recalls spending every day with his brother on the field, on the court, or in the water.
I don't think I owned a shirt till I was 21. All the pictures, the family movies, my father is shirtless, my brother shirtless, we're outside in the sun. I read on the beach. That's where I got all my knowledge, was reading.
Of course, there was reading and studying. Shulam Krauthammer, who spoke 9 languages, even carried his son's stellar second-grade report card around in his coat pocket.
His motto for us was, I want you to know everything. I want you to learn everything. You don't have to do everything, but you got to know everything. He thought that was part of life.
That life did not include a TV, says the cable news pundit.
My father wouldn't allow it. Once a week, Sunday night, we'd go to the neighbors to watch the Ed Sullivan Show. That was the one concession to television.
Inspired by uncles who were doctors, Marcel Krauthammer went to medical school. It was assumed Charles would follow. But as a 19-year-old senior at McGill, the internationally renowned Canadian university, he was bitten by a different bug, political journalism.
Well, that was a little bit of campus intrigue. The editorship of the newspaper at McGill was controlled by the student council. I'd been elected to the student council, and the paper was becoming unreadable. It was run by Marxist Maoists. I mean, it looked like it came out of the Soviet Union. He just couldn't read it. So we engineered a coup to fire the editor. And then we sort of realized, well, what do we do now? We have to find an editor. So they looked around and they decided it's going to be me. So I said, wait, I've never worked on a paper. I said, a detail.
A poli-sci and economics major, he loved thinking and writing about all things political. He applied to medical school to please his family and got accepted to Harvard. But he got into Oxford as well to study political theory. Would Krauthammer choose a life of science or a life of letters? The brilliant graduate had enviable options, but he hadn't figured out what mattered most to him. So he split the difference. He put off Harvard, enrolled at Oxford. And while studying history's great political philosophers, he met a fellow student from Australia, Robin Trethewey. Attractive and brilliant, too, a clerk to the Chief Justice of her home state's Supreme Court. But so much would change in the 3 years between when they met and married, beginning with his sudden decision to leave England.
I had this little epiphany of sorts. I studied political theory. It was getting more and more abstract. I learned a lot, but I began to feel that I was sort of spinning out into a universe that didn't have anything to do with the real world. I called the registrar at Harvard Medical School and said, I'd like to come in the coming class. And I remember her saying, well, one guy dropped out. We got a spot. If you're here on Monday, it's yours. So I grabbed a toothbrush and I didn't pack. I got on a plane and I left. And that's how I decided to become a doctor. Now, when I woke up in Boston, the next day I thought to myself, oh my God, what have I done? But there was no going back.
Why did you choose psychiatry?
I was looking for something halfway between the reality of medicine and the elegance, if you like, of philosophy. So psychiatry was the obvious thing. That was my intention from the first day. And I was lucky because it was probably the easiest branch of medicine for me to do once I was hurt.
Hurt. That doesn't even begin to describe it. When did you realize that the accident was life-altering?
The second it happened.
After the break.
Patrick woke up with back pain, but he has work to do, so he took a leave. If he'd taken Tylenol, he'd be stopping for more pills right now. Only Aleve has the strength to stop tough pain for up to 12 hours with just one pill. Aleve, all day strong.
So I think I got to get my roof repaired. You know anybody?
Yeah, actually I might.
Yeah, great. Can you do a free background check on them, get me some additional quotes, and book it for 2 weeks from now?
You can't expect your neighbors to do everything Home Advisor can. So to find and book a top-rated home pro for free, just ask Home Advisor.
Sleigh bells ring, are you listening? A beautiful sight, walking in a winter wonderland.
Naughty or nice, we don't judge. Everyone can get our best deals of the season on select models during Hyundai holidays. Save up to $3,500 on the 2018 Elantra or get 0% APR and $1,000 cash back. Only at the Hyundai Holiday Sales Event.
My weekly poker game is moving to the Cobra Lounge. You'll help run it.
I was in a room with movie stars, directors, and business titans.
Thank you, Molly. I want you to listen. You are unimportant.
I wasn't going to wait before I put a plan in place. First buy-in, $250,000.
Let's play. I don't think I can defend the poker princess.
If you think a princess can do what I did, you're incorrect.
Molly's game.
Has given us the greatest gift possible. Mom at home, happy. Our traditions alive.
Visiting Angels, America's choice in senior home care.
It's a frozen world. But right now, it's thawing out.
Every day counts out here in the summer.
You work till the sun goes down.
Summer is a season of opportunity, and I've got to grab it.
This is life without a clock.
You always got to thank the head.
If you don't produce, you die.
Life Below Zero, The Thaw. New season starts Thursday, January 4th at 9 on National Geographic.
Welcome back to Fox News Reporting. So far, you've met the young Charles Krauthammer, Harvard Medicine, class of '75. His life seemed to be going according to plan, but then no life ever really does. The snapshot was taken in May 1972. It shows a strapping 6'1" Charles Krauthammer standing on the beach. It's the confident smile of a young man well on his way to making it. Smart, athletic, handsome, driven. The future, all his.
That was spring break in my first year of medical school. I went with a bunch of friends to Bermuda. That actually is the last picture of me taken standing. Of course, I didn't know at the time. And I was coming out of the water carrying my sandals. I saw one of my friends with a camera. And then when I got to the top of the dune, I just stood there for a picture. Thought nothing of it until I discovered it years later lying around in a box. And remembering it, of course, it was a fateful picture.
Fateful because of what would happen back at Harvard that summer. You were 22 years old. Tell me about that day.
I went out, it was It was the end of my first year of medical school. We're doing neurology. We're studying the spinal cord, of all things. My classmate and I decided to skip the morning session. Beautiful July day. And we play tennis instead.
After their game, they head back to class for the afternoon session. But along the way, they stop at a pool on campus, set down their books, and pull off their sneakers.
We're very sweaty. It's very hot. So we go for a swim. We take a few dives, and I hit my head on the bottom of the pool.
A freak accident, says Krauthammer.
The amazing thing is there was not even a cut on my head. It just hit at precisely the angle where all the force was transmitted to one spot, and that is the cervical vertebra, which severed the spinal cord.
When did you realize that the accident was life-altering?
The second it happened.
You knew?
I knew exactly what happened. I knew why I wasn't able to move, and I knew what that meant.
At the bottom of the pool,
I wasn't getting out. I knew, yeah.
He was paralyzed, unable to move his arms or legs. His friend thought he was clowning around and hesitated before diving down to save him. Was there ever a moment that you thought this is the end?
Well, when I knew what happened and I knew I was at the bottom of the pool and I knew I wouldn't be able to swim, I was sure that was the end.
Do you think back to that day often?
Not really. It doesn't. No, I kind of have a distance from it. I see it like as if it happened in a film. And interestingly enough, for people who talk about the near-death experiences, there was no panic. There was no great emotion. I didn't see a light. My life did not flash before me. You sort of get to a place where you're ready, and then you're suddenly brought back to the world.
So no cosmic revelation as he was rushed to the hospital, though Krauthammer notes the irony of what he left behind.
There were 2 books on the side of the pool when they picked up my effects. One was The Anatomy of the Spinal Cord, and the other one's Man's Fate by Andre Malraux. Quite a choice. I didn't know what was coming, but it fit very well.
Coming up, Krauthammer's fate lay in the balance. What he did next astounded his professors and classmates.
I knew that would be fatal. It was not a question.
Life happens everywhere. Like it never even happened, only happens here. The cleanup and restoration specialists at 1-800-SERVPRO and ServPro.com. She's nationally recognized for her compassion and care. He spent decades fighting to give families a second chance. But to help others, they first had to protect themselves.
I have AFib. Even for a nurse, it's complicated, and it puts me at a higher risk of stroke.
That would be devastating. I had to learn all I could to help protect myself.
Once I got the facts, my doctor and I chose Xarelto.
Xarelto, to help keep me protected.
Once daily Xarelto, a latest generation blood thinner, significantly lowers the risk of stroke in people with AFib not caused by a heart valve problem. It has similar effectiveness to warfarin.
Xarelto works differently.
Warfarin interferes with at least 6 blood clotting factors. Xarelto is selective, targeting just one critical factor, interacting with less of your body's natural blood clotting function. For AFib patients well managed on warfarin, there is limited information on how Xarelto compares in reducing the risk of stroke. Don't stop taking Xarelto without talking to your doctor, as this may increase risk of stroke. While taking, you may bruise more easily or take longer for bleeding to stop. It may increase your risk of bleeding if you take certain medicines. Xarelto can cause serious and in rare cases fatal bleeding. Get help right away for unexpected bleeding, unusual bruising, or tingling. If you've had spinal anesthesia, watch for back pain or any nerve or muscle-related signs or symptoms. Do not take Xarelto if you have an artificial heart valve or abnormal bleeding. Tell your doctor before all planned medical or dental procedures and before starting Xarelto about any conditions such as kidney, liver, or bleeding problems.
It's important to learn all you can
to help protect yourself from a stroke.
Talk to your doctor about Xarelto. There's more to know.
Millions of starving children in Africa need our help in what the UN calls the largest humanitarian crisis of our time. By supporting the Global Emergency Response Coalition, you'll help provide aid to the sick and starving and save lives.
We go inside Eisenhower's final days in office and the final mission of an American giant. Watch as Brett Baer anchors 3 Days in January, tonight.
One little joint supplement. You know this powerful little pill is great for your joints. It's great for your knees. It even has powerful benefits to help increase your mobility and flexibility. But the joint supplements of today are sadly incomplete because they don't start relieving joint discomfort fast enough. Introducing the complimentary sample of Instaflex Advanced, our most powerful joint formula ever. The only thing our complimentary sample of Instaflex Advanced is missing is the price. We're so sure Instaflex Advanced will give you relief in just 1 week. We'll give you a complimentary sample. To claim your sample, text DANCE to 231231. Instaflex Advanced is great for relief of discomfort in your aching knees and joints. Get a complimentary sample now by texting DANCE to 231231. Instaflex Advanced samples are not available in stores, so text DANCE to 231231 now.
A skipped class, a fateful dive, a terrible injury. And there Charles Krauthammer lay in a hospital bed, paralyzed. Nothing to do but think.
I made one promise to myself on day one. I was not going to allow it to alter my life, except in ways which are sort of having to do with gravity. I'm not going to defy gravity, and I'm not going to walk, I'm not going to water ski again, that's fine. So that you know. But on the big things in life, the direction of my life, what I was going to do, that wouldn't change at all.
Krauthammer says he never entertained the notion that one day, whether through his own effort or even some medical miracle, he'd regain full use of his arms and legs. He resigned himself to the cold reality that wherever he went in life, he'd go in a wheelchair.
Is that hard?
I think the physical part was hard, learning to do everything again. I have a great capacity for erasing memories, so it seems very short. It was long, but it would seem very short.
His teachers and classmates certainly thought he was rushing his decision to resume his studies immediately.
You never thought about taking a year off or taking a couple years off?
No. I knew that would be fatal. It was not a question.
Because you just couldn't survive?
Yeah, I mean, life would be over. It's a little early for life to be over.
So while nobody had heard of someone with Krauthammer's injury standing up to the rigors of a med school curriculum, Krauthammer convinced Harvard to let him try. Amazingly, mere weeks after his accident, he resumed classes while still in his hospital bed.
I was lying on my back, couldn't move. The professors would come in, repeat their lectures and project slides on the ceiling. Because I had asked the medical school to let me stay with my class.
And you read by laying on your back?
One of the cardiac residents hooked up a plexiglass plate above my head that he hung from the posters of the bed, and the nurses would put a book on it face down. Now, you don't want to call them every 3 minutes and a half to turn the page, so I put 2 books up at once, so they'd only have to come half the time. But you got to remember where you were. It's a bit of a challenge. It keeps you busy. There wasn't a lot else to do.
With such force of will, Krauthammer graduated on time in 1975 and near the top of his class. Along the way, he got the girl, too, and married Robin. But as he began his 3-year residency at Massachusetts General Hospital, there were indications from the beginning that Charles and psychiatry might not be the perfect fit.
Part of the residency is that you're supposed to go to this weekly group therapy session, and you didn't want to go.
There were 12 of us residents in Mass General, and there was a group therapy once a week. And I didn't go. I thought it's a pointless exercise. So I was called into the chief's office after about 7 weeks of non-appearance, and he said to me, why aren't you going to therapy? And I said, sir, I came here to give therapy, not to receive it. And he said to me, you're in denial. And I said, of course I'm in denial. Denial is the greatest of all defense mechanisms. I could be a professor of denial. I mean, I'm an expert at Well, I was going on and he wasn't very amused.
He gave Krauthammer an ultimatum: go to group therapy or leave the program.
So I went to the next 21 weeks of sessions or whatever it was. But I didn't really say a word. So whenever people would notice that, they'd say, why aren't you talking? I said, because I'm in denial. I'm not a big therapy guy.
But was it because you didn't want somebody looking around your head?
Yes, I don't like to talk about myself, except with you, I guess. I'm not a touchy, I'm not a feely guy. And that's probably why I quit psychiatry. I mean, if you're not into feelings and emotions and all the backstory, then you ought to be doing something else.
So in 1978, Krauthammer took a government job in Washington at what would become the National Institute of Mental Health. It wasn't what he really wanted, but it put him in the right neighborhood.
I thought, once I'm in Washington, isn't that where they do politics? One thing will lead to another.
His folks worried about their son tossing away a doctor's livelihood, but didn't discourage him. His wife, Robin, who would leave her career in law to become a painter and sculptor, urged him to follow his dream.
She was the one who, 35 years ago, encouraged me to follow my heart, and with her wit and humor and generosity of spirit, has co-authored my life.
In a moment, Charles' co-author helps him answer a higher calling. And later, he finds himself moving left to right after the break.
Hi.
Well, honey, I said sweet potatoes.
Yes, you did. I forgot the shrimp. Shrimp and apple pie.
Dad likes pecan.
Oh, well, in that case, I can.
Love to drive? Visit your Infiniti retailer for leases starting at $289 a month during the Start Your Own Legacy winter sales event. Infiniti, empower the drive.
What makes this simple salad the best simple salad ever? Heart-healthy California walnuts. The best simple pasta ever? California walnuts. The best simple dinner ever? Great tasting, heart-healthy California walnuts. So simple, so good. Get the recipes at walnuts.org.
Fries for $3.16, please. Thank you.
David, what's going on? Oh, hey. That's it?
Yeah. Everybody, 2 seconds. Dear Sebastian, after careful consideration of your application, it is with great pleasure that we offer our congratulations on your acceptance.
Through the Tuition Assistance Program, every day, McDonald's helps more people go to college. It's part of our commitment to being America's best first job.
Page Six doesn't just know gossip, they invented it.
Big news from the entertainment world.
Heartbreakers, moneymakers, trendsetters, and private jetters. From the famous to the infamous.
I literally just broke the story.
We go way beyond the headlines.
My sources are saying about their relationship, it's all for show.
Giving you a VIP pass into the hottest stories.
This is the future of pop culture.
It's who's on the inside that counts. Page Six TV. Weekdays. Check your local listings.
Every year, 40% of all food in the U.S. never gets eaten.
40%. That's almost half the food we produce.
Food waste is a serious problem. It impacts all of us.
And it's expensive. Your family is throwing $1,500 a year in the trash.
We're working hard to put food waste on the chopping block.
And you can do the same at home.
Learn how to cook it, store it, and share it.
Just don't waste it.
Go to SaveTheFood.com.
Shortly before 9 a.m., fashion designer Gianni Versace was shot on the steps of his villa.
Pronounced Versace.
Singer?
That's Liberace.
He was a creator. Everything you see around us, this house, this company, was his life. I will not allow that man, that nobody, to kill my brother twice.
So what brings you to Miami?
I know people.
Oh, yeah?
Versace.
What do you do for work?
I worked for my father on his pineapple plantations in the Philippines.
I'm a fashion student.
I'm a stockbroker. I'm building the sets for the Titanic.
I was married. You can't do it, can you?
Can't what?
Stop lying.
Andrew Cunanan, 27 years old. He's killed 4 men.
This world has wasted me. And yet this world also made you, Mr. Versace. And a star. We're the same. The only difference is that you got lucky.
The Assassination of Gianni Versace premieres Wednesday, January 17th on FX.
Live from America's News headquarters, I'm Rob Schmidt. North Korea calling the latest UN sanctions an act of war. The UN unanimously approved tough new sanctions against the rogue nation Friday. They come in response to the North's latest launch of a ballistic missile that Pyongyang says can reach anywhere on the U.S. mainland. The resolution was drafted by the U.S. and negotiated with the North's closest ally, China. North Korea says it is a pipe dream for the U.S. to think it would ever give up its nuclear weapons. Palestinian Christians preparing to celebrate Christmas in Bethlehem, the historic birthplace of Jesus. But Sunday's festivities held against the backdrop of protests over President Trump's decision to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital. So far, there has been no violence. Palestinian officials did scale back celebrations in protest of that decision by the Trump White House. I'm Rob Schmidt. Now back to Charles Krauthammer, A Life That Matters.
Charles Krauthammer once wrote a column about the most important person of the 20th century. Time magazine had chosen Einstein, the great scientist. Charles disagreed. He picked Churchill, the indispensable statesman who led the fight against Hitler and sounded the alarm over communism. Politics trumping science. That might explain why Krauthammer traded a big-time medical career for a one-way ticket to Washington. And why, once here, his eyes locked onto a help wanted ad in the political opinion magazine, The New Republic.
I showed it to my wife and she said, "Why don't you apply?" I said, "Well, how can I apply? I've never written anything, don't know anybody." She said, "You write it, I'll hand deliver it."
I was intrigued, so I called him.
Michael Kinsley was looking for a managing editor for the left-leaning magazine.
Was there something in his application, something during that phone call that made you want to bring him down?
It was mainly the fact that he was a psychiatrist because he had no writing samples.
Well, what did you see in him, though?
You know, I just enjoyed talking to him so much. I had this feeling he must be able to write this down.
Krauthammer gave it a shot. As the saying goes, he wrote about what he knew. His first article, The Expanding Shrink, protested how psychoanalysis was creeping into political discourse. For example, President Carter's famous malaise speech that blamed the horrible economy on Americans' crisis of confidence.
They liked it, that they published it, and I got lucky again. It was republished on the op-ed page of the Washington Post. It was the first time any article in the New Republic had been picked up by the Post.
Krauthammer wrote a few more pieces for the magazine and might have joined the staff, except he got an even more intriguing offer as a speechwriter for Vice President Walter Mondale.
That lasted 6 months. And when we got totally crushed in the general election, I got a call from the New Republic and they said, "We think you're unemployed now. Would you like to come work for us?" I said yes right away and started. On the day Reagan was sworn in, that's the first day I started at the New Republic as a writer.
So help me God.
The new president was promising big changes, even starting the world anew. Reagan's inaugural truly signaled a great clash of ideas.
In this present crisis, government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem.
And the New Republic was right in the midst of it.
Well, it was overwhelmingly liberal. The writers were the best of that era. I was still a Democrat at the time, a traditional liberal Democrat, a great society liberal, but I was pretty hardline on the Soviets. It's hard for people to believe now, but the Democratic Party had a very powerful wing that was very anti-Soviet.
But those Democrats were a dying breed, and Krauthammer found himself agreeing more with President Reagan than with his liberal readers.
I ended up supporting just about every element of the Reagan foreign policy, and boy, did we get reaction from our liberal readership. I wrote one editorial excoriating the nuclear freeze that caused the largest number of cancel subscriptions in the history of the magazine, which I was very proud of.
What was his writing like?
It's always been extremely step-by-step logical. If you can read a column by Charles about something and you can still disagree with him after you're through with it, then you know you must have a pretty good argument.
Those arguments had conservative columnists like William F. Buckley wondering why Krauthammer and the New Republic were not supporting Reagan's re-election in 1984.
What Buckley was writing was, why don't you give up on the Democrats? And I was still one of those who wanted to sort of save the soul of the Democratic Party and maintain this conservative element of which the magazine really was.
Krauthammer fired off a letter to Buckley, writing, Reagan still had, quote, a lot to answer for on foreign policy, and his domestic policy was far worse. Quote, the catalog of sins we believe the president has committed is too long to recapitulate here. But Krauthammer tells me he privately wanted Reagan to beat his old boss, Walter Mondale.
But I had worked for Mondale in 1980. I liked him and had respect for him. And as a personal matter, as a kind of a matter of honor, I didn't want to vote against a man for whom I had respect and affection.
So you have a vote, Reagan or Mondale?
That's the only presidential election where I left that line blank.
Left it blank.
But if I had been the swing vote, I would have obviously have voted for Reagan.
It was a turning point in Krauthammer's transition from the political left to the political right.
And just a few months after the election, I wrote something called the Reagan Doctrine.
It was a Time magazine column, and it was provocative. For while Krauthammer had praised Reagan on a number of foreign policy issues, he was now crediting him with a breakthrough insight that changed the calculus of the Cold War.
I realized that what Reagan had done without a grand master plan was to challenge what at the time was called the Brezhnev Doctrine. And that was, whenever we take over a country, it becomes a communist, it's ours. And all of a sudden what Reagan had done is to challenge that and to say, no, you don't get to keep what you got. We're going to challenge your possessions, wherever they are. And I thought, this is a really good idea. And I'm going to give it a name.
He invented the Reagan Doctrine, not Reagan. And now everybody's got to have a doctrine.
Yeah.
Charles has made it mandatory to come up with a doctrine for every president.
But even after Reagan's 49-state landslide, Krauthammer was still not sure what to make of Reagan the man, who he met at the White House in 1986.
He invited me to lunch. I tried to engage him, like on the conscious, what are you going to do? And all of a sudden, what I'm hearing from him is a story about how when he and Nancy were in the guest house of President Marcos of the Philippines, there was a giant spider on the ceiling. And the question was how to get him off without scaring Nancy. And I'm thinking, I don't get it. This is the most successful president in my lifetime. He seems to be out to lunch. What's going on?
He says it was only later that he realized what eluded him about Reagan.
He had no need ever to show how smart he was. He knew exactly what I was asking. He didn't want to talk about it. And if you thought he was a dunce, he didn't care, because he knew that he wasn't.
It would also be some time before Krauthammer embraced a conservative domestic policy, taxes, welfare, small government, and other Reagan-esque sins.
It took me about a decade. I was skeptical of tax cuts. I was skeptical of smaller government at the beginning. And then by the end of the 80s, I had begun to change.
What happened?
Empirical evidence. As a doctor, I'd been trained in empirical evidence. I mean, if the treatment is killing your patients, you stop the treatment. And I began to look and to read and to think about whether the view I had of a social democratic society like they had in Europe was the right way. And I sort of, I moved gradually to the idea of a more limited society, smaller government.
By that time, Krauthammer's world was really falling into place. In 1985, his son, Daniel, was born. 2 years later, Krauthammer won the biggest honor in print journalism, the Pulitzer Prize. Not bad for someone who started in the business less than a decade earlier, without even a writing sample. He went straight from the ceremony to see his father, who'd once worried about his son's jump from medicine to journalism. Shulem Krauthammer was 84 and gravely ill.
I went to the hospital where he was, and I said, Dad, I have something I want to give you. And I gave him the medal. And he beamed, and he showed it to all the nurses.
It turned out to be Krauthammer's final visit with his dad.
So the last time I saw him was a time when this whole circle was closed, and he could feel that the choice had been redeemed in some way. It was a very comforting thing to remember about the last time you see your parent.
Krauthammer called the 1990s a holiday from history. The Cold War was won. The era of big government declared over. And 9/11 brought a new urgency to his commentary.
People understand there is a nexus between these weapons, these states, and the terrorists, and we have to attack them where they are.
Krauthammer began appearing on Special Report's All-Star panel and was soon an audience favorite.
You've been a fixture on Special Report for a long time, and even still, a lot of people don't know that you're in a wheelchair. They don't know the extent of your paralysis.
I am sitting behind the table. And it is true. I'd say half the people I meet are absolutely surprised to see me in a wheelchair. And one of the more amusing of those incidents happened about 8, 9 years ago. And I remember I was sitting in Madison Square Garden in the Fox box. I think
Charles could get in.
He told us that when you get together, you first talk baseball. And then when you've dealt with all the important issues, you go to politics.
If there's time left over, yes.
Tim Kirchin, a senior writer for ESPN magazine, has lunch with Will and Krauthammer a couple of times a year to talk baseball.
To say they're fans is an understatement. To say they love the game is an understatement.
I grew up playing the game. I loved to play the game. And as a kid, my brother and I would go around on our Schwinns on the streets of Long Island with transistor radios hanging from the handlebars, listening to Mel Allen and Phil Rizzuto doing the Yankee games. This was our lives.
Since the Nationals came to Washington in 2005, they've had no bigger fan than Charles Krauthammer.
When I started to do your show every night, you know, it ends at 7, the game starts at 7:10. The garage at Fox is 7 minutes if the wind is fair in the 3rd Street Tunnel from the garage at Nat Stadium. So I get there in the bottom of the 1st. I mean, how can I resist?
He makes that trip in a special vehicle designed just for him that lets Krauthammer accelerate and brake with his left hand and steer with his right.
Everybody who comes in here the first time is terrified. And I don't blame them. In fact, when I went for my driving test, the tester didn't want to get in. I told him he had to. It's the law. I think he passed me because he survived. He was so happy to be alive when it was over.
The first time I saw you go into the parking lot, you know, I waved to you. And then the next day you said to me, you really shouldn't wave. It's a little dangerous.
Yeah, the wave is a little bit hard. When somebody lets me in traffic, I'm tempted to take one hand and to say the thank you wave. But then, of course, I wouldn't have a hand on the steering wheel. So.
Yeah.
It actually took us 8 minutes to get to the stadium. When we took our seats, the Nats were beating the Braves 1-0. Krauthammer went into analyst mode right away, as though he was breaking down a procedural move Harry Reid might use to thwart a Ted Cruz filibuster.
On a 1-0 count, you want to steal on a breaking ball because it's slower. And is he likely to throw a breaking ball? No. So he's unlikely to try to steal right now. Strike one. Now he might go for a breaking ball.
Turns out 9 innings with Charles Krauthammer is not just a day at the park. It's essentially grad school for baseball.
Okay, this is an unfortunate matchup. The only reason Solano is in there, he's the backup catcher who doesn't hit very well.
Look at this, get through, come on. Play. No. Oh.
He's a catcher, he can't run.
From time to time, Charles writes about baseball, typically in a way that transcends the sport. Take his column about Rick Ankiel, a 21-year-old pitching phenom who back in 2000 fell apart when he was picked to start a playoff game. With a huge national TV audience watching, he suddenly couldn't throw a strike. He never pitched the same again. But instead of quitting, Ankiel went back down to the minors, learned a new position, and returned to the majors as a hitter. The column is reprinted in Krauthammer's book, Things That Matter. It's in the personal section, just a few pages after the piece about his brother, Marcel.
I was thinking about this column. This is not really about you, but then your last line, the catastrophe that awaits everyone from a single false move, wrong turn, fatal encounter. Every life has such a moment. What distinguishes us is whether and how we ever come back.
That's why the Rick Ankiel story resonated so much with me. I mean, I had my fatal encounter, as did Rick Ankiel. There's an element of that in everybody's story, their low point. Do you want it enough, and are you lucky enough? That's a part of it, too.
While Krauthammer's injury has kept him off the playing fields and courts, he's pursued another competitive outlet, chess.
Which lights you up more, baseball or chess when you're in the game?
There's no comparison. It's chess.
Do you still play chess?
No, I gave it up. It's an addiction.
Completely.
It's a poison. I mean, it's, you know, you reach a point when you're on the internet, you know, middle of the night and you're playing speed chess where you realize you're in a motel room and you're drinking Aqua Velva.
Your book was supposed to be a collection of essays on things other than politics, but it didn't turn out that way. Why?
In the end, everything, all the beautiful, elegant things in life, depend ultimately on getting politics right.
You say science, art, poetry, baseball must ultimately bow to politics.
I have a column in the book where I write about the Fermi paradox. Fermi was a great physicist who posed a simple question. We know that there are millions of habitable worlds out there. So there have to be thousands, millions of civilizations. Why have we never heard from any of them? The most plausible explanation is that every time a civilization achieves consciousness, and the kind of science that would allow you to transmit a signal, they destroy themselves. And the question is, can we regulate our politics in a way that will allow the human species to flourish and produce all the beautiful stuff? And that's a question that only can be answered by politics.
Coming up, battering the president and ticking off the Tea Party. Have you seen this mail?
My assistant reads most of my mail, and he's now in therapy.
Fox News reporting continues after the break.
This program is brought to you by Gillette, the best a man can get.
It's 6 a.m. 40 million Americans are waking up to a Gillette shave. And at our factory in Boston, 1,200 workers are starting their day building on over 100 years of heritage, craftsmanship, and innovation. Today, we're bringing you America's #1 shave at lower prices every day, putting money back in the pockets of millions of Americans. As one of those workers, I'm proud to bring you Gillette quality for less, because nobody can beat the men and women of Gillette. Gillette, the best a man can get.
Sleigh bells ring, are you listening? A beautiful sight, walking in a winter wonderland.
Naughty or nice, we don't judge. Everyone can get our best deals of the season on select models during Hyundai holidays. Save up to $3,500 on the 2018 Elantra or get 0% APR and $1,000 cash back. Only at the Hyundai Holiday Sales Event.
The pressure is mounting on ISIS, and it is time to finish him.
Everything we do or fail to do will have effects.
We're seeing enemy movement for sure. Where are we at with the strike request?
We're good. At the end of the day, what military service is all about is being a part of something that's greater than yourself.
Chain of Command. New series premieres Monday, January 15th at 9 on National Geographic.
Just waking up and going to school and learning, it makes me feel good as a person. I'm a single mother and I got pregnant and I was the main one working, so I did what I had to do to survive. I never thought that I could go back to school and get it, you know? My sister, my mother, everybody wanted to help me with my kids. I could not have gotten my diploma without my family.
You're winning today.
We're so very proud of you and love you so much. Yeah, it's hard, but don't be afraid. Keep on going and keep on trying. You can do anything you want.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
Hi, I'm looking for the clown book section.
You're sort of stuck where you are, but in your dreams you can buy expensive cars and have it yours.
What's the trunk space like in this thing?
Fits 50 clowns.
Wow. Is this still Bakersfield?
Baskets, all new season, premieres January 23rd on FX.
It was January 2009, 30 years after Charles Krauthammer began his journalism career here in Washington. A new president was about to be sworn in, but Krauthammer wasn't sure what to make of Barack Obama. He got the chance to size him up at a small dinner party hosted by his friend George Will. It was a week before Inauguration Day.
I remember before the president-elect arrived saying, you know, I haven't been able to figure this guy out. Is he a centrist who will occasionally throw a bone to the left? Or is he a lefty who will occasionally throw a bone to the right? Nobody had any ideas.
Well, that was part of Mr. Obama's great strength. He was a national Rorschach test.
So we spent 3 hours with this new man. He leaves and we're staying behind a little bit, and I say, same question. Is he a centrist? Is he a lefty? Nobody knew.
You think you've figured him out?
I figured them out after that first State of the Union speech.
We will invest $15 billion a year to develop technologies like wind power and solar power. We can no longer afford to put health care reform on hold. It will be the goal of this administration to ensure.
I was so astonished that I wrote 5 columns in a row on what kind of unusual political animal he was in giving an agenda as radical as any since FDR. He basically said, I'm not here to tinker. I've come here to transform America.
You've been pretty tough on this administration, this president.
Well, I think he's done just about everything wrong.
But just as he was willing to offend his fellow liberals back in the 80s, he is equally willing to take on conservatives he believes are wrong. Have you seen this mail? From some of the things you've said about Ted Cruz? I mean, I get the emails.
Oh, I know you get the emails. I've seen the tweets. My assistant reads most of my mail, and he's now in therapy. Just kidding.
The Krauthammer on Fox did not appreciate what Cruz did.
If he listened to talk radio, it might really send his assistant over the edge.
Dr. Charles Krauthammer, in the 1980s, he was working for Walter Mondale.
It's my job to call a folly a folly. If you're going to leave the medical profession because you think you have something to say, you're betraying your whole life if you don't say what you think, and you don't say it honestly and bluntly.
Do you think you'll ever stop writing?
No, I intend to die at my desk.
Really?
I would like to. I'm not sure I can arrange it.
I take pictures of sunrises, but with my back pain, I couldn't sleep and get up in time. Then I found Aleve PM.
Aleve PM is the only one to combine a safe sleep aid plus the 12-hour pain-relieving strength of Aleve.
I'm back.
Aleve PM for a better AM.
My weekly poker game is moving to the Cobra Lounge. You'll help run it.
Thank you, Molly.
You're making thousands in tips every week. I'm gonna stop paying you as my assistant. It doesn't seem fair.
It doesn't seem fair?
I wasn't gonna wait before I put a plan in place. First buy-in, $250,000. Let's play.
Movie stars, athletes, and that's just the tip of the iceberg.
We built a multi-million-dollar business using your wits.
I'm about to be charged in federal court.
Nobody's perfect.
Molly's Game, directed by Aaron Sorkin, rated R.
After Mom's hospital and rehab stay, we didn't think we'd get another chance to celebrate a holiday with her. But Visiting Angels has given us the greatest gift possible. Mom at home, happy, well cared for, and most importantly, safe. Sarah's not just a caregiver, she's part of the family, helping us keep our traditions alive.
Visiting Angels, America's choice in senior home care.
She's nationally recognized for her compassion and care. He spent decades fighting to give families a second chance. But to help others, they first had to protect themselves.
I have AFib. Even for a nurse, it's complicated, and it puts me at a higher risk of stroke.
That would be devastating. I had to learn all I could to help protect myself.
Once I got the facts, my doctor and I chose Xarelto.
Xarelto, to help keep me protected.
Once daily Xarelto, a latest generation blood thinner, significantly lowers the risk of stroke in people with AFib not caused by a heart valve problem. It has similar effectiveness to warfarin.
Xarelto works differently.
Warfarin interferes with at least 6 blood clotting factors. Xarelto is selective, targeting just one critical factor, interacting with less of your body's natural blood clotting function. For AFib patients well managed on warfarin, there is limited information on how Xarelto compares in reducing the risk of stroke. Don't stop taking Xarelto without talking to your doctor, as this may increase risk of stroke. While taking, you may bruise more easily or take longer for bleeding to stop. It may increase your risk of bleeding if you take certain medicines. Xarelto can cause serious and in rare cases fatal bleeding. Get help right away for unexpected bleeding, unusual bruising, or tingling. If you've had spinal anesthesia, watch for back pain or any nerve or muscle-related signs or symptoms. Do not take Xarelto if you have an artificial heart valve or abnormal bleeding. Tell your doctor before all planned medical or dental procedures and before starting Xarelto about any conditions such as kidney, liver, or bleeding problems.
It's important to learn all you can
To help protect yourself from a stroke.
Talk to your doctor about Xarelto. There's more to know.
The number one priority for us is to protect the homeland and the American people. What military service is all about is being a part of something that's greater than yourself.
Chain of Command. New series premieres Monday, January 15th at 9 on National Geo.
Welcome to Andrew Jackson, Hero Under Fire. I'm Brian Kilmeade. You know, Andrew Jackson was one of America's most consequential leaders. Over the next hour, we're going to examine the remarkable life of our 7th president and find out why one of the most revered presidents in his day could be so controversial in our day. His legacy is now under attack in many circles, and as calls mount to take down many iconic Jackson monuments, we're going to hear from both sides of that argument. I've been researching Jackson for my new book, Andrew Jackson and the Miracle of New Orleans, and I'll show you just how important that battle was in shaping the America that we have today. We're going to travel to the legendary Chalmette battlefield in New Orleans, to the White House, and to Jackson's home and final resting place, the Hermitage in beautiful Nashville, Tennessee. Most people would recognize Andrew Jackson from the $20 bill or iconic paintings like this one by Steve Penley, which is brilliant. But to truly understand who Andrew Jackson was, you need to understand the moment that defined him, which came at the end of America's second war of independence, so to speak, the War of 1812. So we begin perhaps with his most impressive feat, forming, melding, and motivating an army to stop the most fearsome force in the world at the time, the British infantry. The Chalmette battlefield, the premier battle in the Battle of New Orleans. What is this? This is a cannon Jackson used. What is that? That's the protection of Jackson's troops. What was over there? The British, outnumbering us 2-1. What Jackson did after that still has military historians befuddled. But I'll give it away. We won. Although the Revolutionary War officially ended in 1783, the British never truly accepted America's victory. In fact, it resulted in another war, the War of 1812. And things were not looking good at the start for the United States.
We were so weak that we couldn't, nor could any other country, challenge what they called the Leviathans of the Deep, the British Navy. 6,000 Americans became prisoners on board British ships.
Our country does not really have a standing army, as a shell of a navy, but yet we declared war because we want to stand up for ourselves and send everyone a message. And early on, the message was, we're weak.
We start off very badly. We've got just the worst generals. We've got no plan.
Washington is burned to the ground.
Yes.
Our president barely escapes.
Yes. They set it ablaze, and then they come out and race back to their ships and leave.
That seems to mobilize America. People thought, wait a second. I might not have been for this war, but our country could be destroyed right now. We have to rally. In December 1814, the Treaty of Ghent is signed, officially ending the war. On paper, that is. It did nothing to stop the British troops in the battlefield.
Great Britain really thought the Louisiana Purchase was bogus, that we really didn't own the Louisiana territory, that it belonged to Spain, that Napoleon never had a right to sell it to us.
So the British headed south towards Louisiana.
The stated goal of the British in their attack plan was to confine this fledgling United States between the Mississippi River and the East Coast.
If you lose the Mississippi, America would be a prisoner in their own country, forbidden to move west.
This battle was for all of westward expansion.
The British are coming in full confidence. Some of them brought their wives.
The British were thought that they were going to be able to have a Christmas celebration in New Orleans. They'd be able to feast here, that they would be able to take over the comforts, take over the plantations.
The job of stopping them fell to the commander of the Tennessee militia, Major General Andrew Jackson.
Most everybody figures the war is lost. New Orleans is in a panic. The government wants to surrender. The British aren't even here. Well, let's just surrender.
The people of New Orleans were unbelievably tense. Why? Because the British were just miles away. They didn't know if they were going to face oppression or be able to keep the freedom that America offered them just 3 weeks prior to the war. It was up to Jackson to let them know he's got them covered.
And so he declares martial law, and he says, no, he says, I'm here, and they shall not pass except over my dead body.
The historic French Quarter, Charters in St. Louis. Why would I bring you to this intersection? Because it was right here in this building, 200 plus years ago, where Andrew Jackson met with his generals, and they sketched out a battle plan to take on the British. Was nothing short of brilliant and yielded unparalleled success.
He had no background. He had never led anything in combat, but he has this innate ability to see what's going on, see what needs to be done.
And Jackson here started doing recruitment, and his view is anybody who had a gun was welcome to serve in Andrew Jackson's army.
His mishmash of troops that comes in, part Choctaw Indians, Kentucky and Tennessee militia, 2 units from the Army, 7th and 44th, 62 United States Marines, and Beale's rifles, and 3 men of color.
He paid whites and people of color the exact same fee. Said, join our side. We don't care what your past is. I mean, we're talking about Jean Lafitte and the pirates that Jackson brings into the scene. You know, these were outlaws.
He did not want the pirates to be at all involved. He called them the hellish banditti. I'll have nothing to do with them. Until someone told him, look, they can provide you with 30,000 rounds of ammunition and the powder to go with it. Swear them in.
That was it. You're suddenly just pulling everybody in from, people are working kitchens and plantations. A little bit of everybody stood up to defend their city.
Jackson knew that one thing would be the key to victory.
This was all about the Mississippi.
It channelized the British Army. So when the British Army wanted to attack Jackson's line, he had to fit his army between the Mississippi River and an impenetrable swamp about 800 yards away. New Orleans is to our north, about 7 to 9 miles. The British land below New Orleans. The British know that the waters get too shallow to bring the fleet in. They can't really come upriver. The current is just terrible. So they're going to make a landing with their army and come down and seize this undefended city.
But it's not undefended. Jackson had anticipated exactly where they would land and prepared the land for battle, digging a moat-like canal and building a mud berm.
Jackson comes in and digs in along this line, the Rodriguez Canal, where he sets his force behind it, almost 800 yards.
When we come back, how that simple man-made berm might have saved the United States as we know it today. Plus, we're going to hear from the people who want to tear down the monuments of Andrew Jackson and get a behind-the-scenes tour of his beautiful home.
Now, this is the front parlor of the mansion. And if you were coming to visit President Jackson or former President Jackson, you would have been invited to come in here and wait for him. And he would have let you wait long enough to look at the things he had in this room that would tell you he's an important man. For example, it was him winning the Battle of New Orleans that really catapulted him to national fame. This is a British bayonet that a cypress tree had grown up around from Chalmette, where the battle was fought.
Wow.
So
they were able to get that out of the tree and bring it here. So he had this?
This was his. He owned it. As a president, there were a lot of parallels to him and George Washington. He was held in the same status. So there are things around the house that have a Washington connection, like the writing crop here on the chair is made from a vine that grew on Washington's tomb.
It's the most wonderful time of the year.
$50 gift card for them, $10 bonus card for you. Only at Applebee's. Now that's eating good in the neighborhood.
Looking for a hotel that fits your budget? TripAdvisor now searches over 200 sites to find you the hotel you want at the lowest price. Grazie, Gino. Find a price that fits. TripAdvisor.
One fateful day, 2 of Mitsubishi's safest siblings were separated. The Roberts family adopted the Outlander, while Mike and Jenny took home the Outlander Sport. But no matter where their journeys take them, they'll always be part of America's safest crossover family. The 2018 Mitsubishi Outlander and Outlander Sport, starting at $22,995. Get $3,500 cash back and make no payments for 90 days or 0% APR for 84 months.
You'll get some presents this Christmas. A book, a picture, a sweater you don't really like. But your best present is coming from a very unexpected place. Republicans in Congress just passed the biggest tax reform in 30 years. 300,000 new jobs, an extra $2,000 for middle-class families. No, you haven't had too much eggnog. Republicans in Congress really are letting you keep more of your hard-earned money. So happy tax cuts to all, and to all a good night.
Thank you.
from the Foundation for a Better Life.
It's a frozen world, but right now it's thawing out.
Every day counts out here in the summer.
You work till the sun goes down.
Summer is a season of opportunity, and I've got to grab it.
This is life without a clock.
You always got to thank the head.
If you don't produce, you die.
Life Below Zero, The Thaw. New season starts Thursday, January 4th at 9 on National Geographic.
The Five's getting married and answering your Christmas questions. Plus,
wait, you got my mom a gift?
the must-see Secret Santa, all on the 5 Christmas special.
Shortly before 9 a.m., fashion designer Gianni Versace was shot on the steps of his villa.
Pronounced Versace. Singer? That's Liberace.
He was a creator. Everything you see around us, this house, this company, was his life. I will not allow that man, that nobody, to kill my brother twice.
So what brings you to Miami?
I know people.
Oh, yeah?
Versace.
What do you do for work?
I worked for my father on his pineapple plantations in the Philippines.
I'm a fashion student.
I'm a stockbroker. I'm building the sets for the Titanic.
I was married. You can't do it, can you?
Can't what?
Stop lying.
Andrew Cunanan, 27 years old. He's killed 4 men.
This world has wasted me, and yet this world also made you, Mr. Versace, into a star. We're the same. The only difference is that you got lucky.
The Assassination of Gianni Versace premieres Wednesday, January 17th on FX.
By late December 1814, nearly 15,000 British troops were outside New Orleans, with their eyes set on the city, control of that city, and the entire Mississippi River. Major General Andrew Jackson and his ragtag soldiers were heavily outnumbered, but Jackson's plan to create a barrier out of mud and river would prove extremely effective. This berm, this protection, this wall was built in a matter of weeks, miles long, to protect Andrew Jackson and the American troops. Over there were thousands of British troops. What they wanted was over there. That was New Orleans. What they wanted to control was over there, the Mississippi. What's at stake? The future of the country. What did Andrew Jackson do? Win.
The battlefield really was approximately 4 miles long. The width was always the same between the river and the swamp.
If you look at it from the British perspective, even with a scope, you can't see that that canal was there. So you think you're just going over an earthenwork, but when you get there, you got to go down and then up, and it was 8 feet of water. You had to like wade across it up. Well, at that point, you could just shoot them like fish in a barrel. So Jackson had created a giant booby trap for the British.
And they all man along this line. They're not going to go out and engage the British. Jackson knows that would be suicidal. And once he dug in here, no one moved him out. This is a part of the berm, or the Jackson's line.
I'm struck that even 200 years, this berm still sits here.
But remember, that would have been dug out 6 or 7 feet deep, and the spoil on top added another 6 feet. So the British coming across would have had to have negotiated this 12 to 15 foot wide canal, put ladders up, and scaled this to have any chance. A really formidable task. The cannons, their barrels were cut through the mud, so just the barrels stuck out. So there was no target at all for the British to shoot at.
It's an ancient kind of warfare that took place here. I mean, we think of modern warfare, but yet it's trench warfare.
And guess what? If this berm didn't work, there was another line and another line they'd have to go through before they get to New Orleans, but they never got past this line.
That's right.
January 8th, 1815. After 3 weeks of fighting small battles, the British finally launched a massive assault on Jackson's dug-in position. As we look out here, there's a British flag in the back. That's where the British came in.
That's where they launched their attack from.
But that's a killing field.
Yes.
You had these sharpshooters taking them out like it's a video game. And in the end, over 2,000 are wounded or killed. And for America, under 50.
Yeah, 13. 20, some people say. The whole casualties for the entire 3-week campaign was close to 200. The attacking British have made ladders and face scenes, as they call them, bundles of sugar cane to throw in to lessen the height and then put the ladder up to scale it.
That's a suicide mission.
Yeah, well, and it was a suicide mission. That's exactly what happened. It took too much time to go down and up, so they were bound and destined to get slaughtered.
And you don't just have riflemen here shooting at you. You've got these cannons firing grape shot and canister shot into your ranks. There were a variety of cannons. The largest were these 24-pounders. These came off of the schooner Carolina after it had been attacked. The gun crew wheeled it in. The barrel is through the berm. The group captain set the touch hole off and kaboom.
The British had to do this. They had to drag their own through the swamp.
60 miles. Ammunition was certainly a problem, so ingenuity said stuff anything down this barrel. So if you had horseshoes, if you had candlesticks, anything that was metal, nails, doorknobs, whatever they could put in here that would form a lethal flying projectile went in.
Just goes to show you, everyone in New Orleans on some way was in that fight, because those doorknobs and things had to come off somebody's doors.
Exactly.
This becomes a bloodbath here. The corpses, well, now we're just looking at green grass. It was the beginning of the end of Britain, and in many ways the birth of modern America.
Why would I be outside a convent when I'm trying to tell the Battle of New Orleans? Because this isn't just any convent. This is the home of the Ursuline nuns. It dates back hundreds of years. They prayed for Jackson's success. And among the people who think that these nuns brought him a miraculous victory, Major General Andrew Jackson himself.
We are standing at the Old Ursuline Convent, and it is the oldest building in the Mississippi Valley. The Ursulines arrived here in 1727 and started their mission to educate young women, as well as to care for the men and soldiers that were at the hospital.
3 weeks before the War of 1812, Louisiana becomes a state, and the war is raging, and it's going terribly. But suddenly things start to turn around, and the breaking point is the Battle of New Orleans. Why would I be standing in a convent talking about a Battle of New Orleans?
So while the men went to the battlefield, the women came to church to pray.
Andrew Jackson loved the fact that the nuns of New Orleans, Ursuline nuns, were praying for victory. It gave his troops morale. It gave them a feel, the nuns gave a feel that God is on our side.
They're all praying the night of the battle to what they call Our Lady of Prompt Succor, Our Lady of Immediate Help, the Blessed Virgin.
They're here praying all night long. At 6 o'clock in the morning, they start Mass.
They were really going at it, you know, devotional candles and prayers for Andrew Jackson. It spread throughout the heavily Catholic town of New Orleans that the Catholic Church is praying for you, the nuns are praying.
Father Duberg says Mass, and during communion, there's a runner that comes in and yells, "Victory is ours." And the entire church drops to their knees.
They prayed for the victory. It was a miraculous victory, and they attribute a lot of that to their prayers.
They sing the Te Deum, which is the song of thanksgiving for a Mass.
After the battle, Jackson went and paid homage to them, visited with them, and thanked them. And also, they were extraordinary nurses. So all of our wounded and some of the British wounded were taken care of by these nuns.
From then on, for the last over 200 years, have kept that promise to sing that Mass of thanksgiving, because they believe that prayer is what won that battle.
Still to come, the battle over the many statues and monuments of Andrew Jackson that some people want to tear down. Plus, we're going to head to the White House and see why other presidents have been influenced so heavily by America's 7th president, including, by the way, our current commander-in-chief. And we're going to travel to Nashville, Tennessee for a behind-the-scenes tour of Andrew Jackson's beautiful home, the Hermitage.
We're going into the dining room of Andrew Jackson's home, and it's the largest room in the house, but it would be a very important place for the Jacksons to meet with their friends, for Jackson to meet with political colleagues in this room. The interesting thing is that Jackson didn't sit at the end of the table where you would think a president would sit. He liked to sit in the middle of the table, so he could talk to people at either end of the table equally.
I am totally blind, and Non-24 can throw my days and nights out of sync, keeping me from the things I love to do. Talk to your doctor and call 844-214-2424.
This is our workshop. These are our lights. Performance is our tradition. And this is the TLX. Take advantage of some of the best offers of the year at the Acura Seasonal Performance event going on now.
Lease the 2018 TLX for $299 a month for well-qualified customers. Visit your local Acura dealer today.
Hey, Todd. Hey, Will. So I think I got to get my roof repaired. Do you know anybody?
Yeah, actually I might.
Ah, great. Can you do a free background check on them for me? Get me some additional quotes. Research the average price for the job in this area and book the job for 2 weeks from now. On a Wednesday. No, wait. Tuesday. Yeah, Tuesday's better.
You can't expect your neighbors to do everything HomeAdvisor can. So to find and instantly book a background-checked home pro for free, just ask HomeAdvisor.
What makes this simple salad the best simple salad ever? Heart-healthy California walnuts. The best simple veggie dish ever? California walnuts. The best simple dinner ever? Great tasting, heart-healthy California walnuts. So simple, so good. Get the recipes at walnuts.org.
After Mom's hospital and rehab stay, we didn't think we'd get another chance to celebrate a holiday with her. But visiting Angels has given us the greatest gift possible. Mom at home, happy, well cared for, and most importantly, safe. Sarah's not just a caregiver, she's part of the family, helping us keep our traditions alive.
Visiting Angels, America's choice in senior home care.
There's an exotic place where you can swim in the sky, where all the pleasures of a 5-star luxury vacation are all included. Sandals Grenada. Experience the sandals of tomorrow today. Call 1-800-SANDALS.
Some say e-cigarettes aren't dangerous,
but science shows nicotine can harm teens' developing brains.
no matter how they're exposed.
Let's do an experiment to find out.
Here's a teen who won't be using e-cigarettes.
Now we need one willing to risk their brain development.
Anyone care to volunteer your kid?
Anyone?
Your kids are not an experiment. Protect them from e-cigarettes.
Florida Department of Law Enforcement are currently looking for Andrew Cunanan. Is expected to be extremely dangerous and armed at this time.
The Assassination of Gianni Versace, Wednesday, January 17th on FX.
Live from America's news headquarters, I'm Casey Stiegel in New York. A white Christmas in store for many across the country. The wintry weather is marching its way across the Northeast and the Great Plains. But with snow and ice comes dangerous driving conditions. Forecasters say New England could get about 8 inches, and some states could see winds up to 65 miles per hour. Most of Indiana is under a winter weather advisory, and at this hour, Chicago's O'Hare Airport reporting some flight delays. President Trump and First Lady Melania taking questions tonight from kids who want to track Santa. The Trumps fielded calls, I should say, from their Florida estate where they were spending the holidays. The calls coming by way of NORAD, the North American Aerospace Defense Command, which has tracked the jolly old elf for more than 60 years now. I'm Casey Stiegel. Now back to Andrew Jackson, hero under fire.
So Andrew Jackson's interaction with the Ursuline nuns is just one of the remarkable things that happened in his life. I mean, his whole life was just full of obstacles. Think about this. He was a kid that grew up in the backwoods of the Carolinas. He ends up in a mansion like this, surrounded by 1,100 acres after being a two-term president. Well, what did he overcome? A lot, and a lot early. Tell me about this General Jackson. He wants revenge on the British.
Yes.
Why?
First of all, he's a young boy and he gets slashed by a British officer for failure to shine his boots. He's taken prisoner. His mother bails him out, but then she eventually dies of smallpox, and his older brother loses his life. His family is wiped out in the Revolutionary War, and he never, ever forgives the British. He hates them for the rest of his life.
By 1796, Tennessee becomes a state, and he puts a lot of his ardor, instead of being resentful to the British, into a positive sense of the new state of Tennessee.
When he first bought the Hermitage in 1804, he was a rising political star here in Tennessee. He was head of the Tennessee militia. He fought a duel 2 years later that disrupted his career path. This is the best way to put it. But he had already been a U.S. congressman. He'd already been a U.S. senator. He had been on what we would consider today the Tennessee Supreme Court.
He goes on and worked in the Indian Wars, and he's able to take control over Florida. We probably wouldn't have Florida as part of the United States if it wasn't for Andrew Jackson.
He was the first military governor of Florida when Florida became a territory of the United States, when we acquired it from Spain. He was only governor for a few months and basically was sent there by President Monroe to impose American law on what had been a Spanish colony.
That's why we got Jacksonville named after him. Jackson, Mississippi, Jackson, Tennessee. You start going to the South, Andrew Jackson's considered almost like a founding father in the South.
What's his leadership philosophy? How did he do this?
He had intimidation, but I think more by example, and then he could be exceedingly funny and kind. If you were performing well, he could throw the compliments on you. So he knew, like any good general, that right mixture of control, but also fatherly caring.
Gotcha.
That he thought that the people that were really serving with him were his brothers in arms.
The portraits on the walls, these are officers that served under Jackson who were very loyal to him. And if you were loyal to Jackson, you were in good condition.
We can't overestimate what a phenomena he became overnight. It gave our new republic a sustainable hero, one that wasn't part of the Revolutionary War per se, but a new generation coming forward. And we call the War of 1812 the Second American Revolution, and the one pure hero of that was Andrew Jackson.
When Andrew Jackson passed away at the age of 78, buried right here, this is his tomb, it put closure on a remarkable life. A life that wasn't without controversy. Two things stand out most of all. The fact that this plantation was powered by slave labor, as many as 150 at one time. A slave he was closest to, buried right by the general, his name Alfred Jackson, passed away at the age of 98. There was also the year 1830 of his presidency, May of that year, when he signed the Indian Removal Act, pushing 5 Indian tribes westward, in some cases all the way to Oklahoma.
Andrew Jackson used to be ranked usually around number 7 on the presidents and polls of scholars. He's dropped way down now. Part of it is what we call First Peoples, Native American history, because of the Trail of Tears, because of the battles with the Seminole and the Creek and the Cherokee.
The Removal Act called for the removal of the 5 tribes from the southeast United States to move to what is modern-day Oklahoma. The Trail of Tears actually happened later after Jackson's presidency. It's somewhat become the term for all Indian removal. But the Trail of Tears itself happened after Jackson's presidency as a result of another treaty that was signed while he was president. It was a horrible experience for all of the Native Americans involved, because they were held in holding pens. This is 1838. Until they were removed, and they left so late that they were caught in the winter. So people were sick, they starved. It was a horrible experience. It was Jackson, but it was also the federal government. And we don't excuse him in any way. He was part and parcel of it.
He gets very low marks on human rights. And then add to the fact that he was a slave owner.
There's nothing that would suggest he was morally troubled by the idea of slavery. It was part of the system he was raised in. It's what enabled him to be a general, to be a president, to do the other things that he did, because they were basically here running the plantation and generating the revenue.
The White House, where history is made. When we come back, how many presidents look to Andrew Jackson for inspiration, and how one president is most like Andrew Jackson? That story, when Andrew Jackson, a hero under fire, continues.
This is Jackson's library, and to me, this is the beating heart of the house. This is where he spent most of his time the last 8 years of his life.
Right.
And he was in constant communication with the other presidents that came after him and members of Congress to kind of he was pulling the strings of what was going on.
He still wanted to have influence.
He still wanted to be president, you know, even though we were 900 miles away. So this was that, if you will, a kind of a political epicenter of the country.
Coaching means making tough choices.
Jim, you're in.
But when you have high blood pressure and need cold medicine that works fast, the choice is simple. Coracetin HBP is the #1 brand that gives powerful cold symptom relief without raising your blood pressure. Coracetin HBP.
It's time to get smart about home security. Introducing Floodlight Cam by Ring, a motion-activated security light with an HD camera.
Don't even think about it.
With Floodlight Cam, you can stop crime before it happens. Protecting your home has never been easier. Available at ring.com.
May God bless and keep you always. May your wishes all come true. May you always do for others. Let others do for you. May you build a ladder to the stars.
Long live tradition. And long live the trucks capable of carrying them on. Ram, proven to last.
Get 0% APR plus 1,000 bonus cash plus no monthly payments for 90 days on 2017 Ram 1500 models.
Fries for 316, please. Thank you.
David, what's going on? Oh, hey. That's it? Yeah. Everybody, 2 seconds.
Dear Sebastian, after careful consideration of your application, it is with great pleasure that we offer our congratulations on your acceptance.
Through the Tuition Assistance Program, every day, McDonald's helps more people go to college. It's part of our commitment to being America's best first job.
I've been thinking about thinking. I mean, think of all the things that think these days. Thinking planes. Thinking cars. Thinking phones. Businesses are thinking. Factories are thinking. Distribution plans are thinking. Plant plants are thinking. Even your toaster is thinking.
Honey, Clive Owen's in our kitchen.
I'm leaving.
Oh, never mind, he's leaving.
There's so much thinking. Even this thing is thinking. Is this thing thinking? This thing is thinking. Businesses are up to their necks in knowledge. Let me illustrate that for you. Scratch that. Terrible idea. But what if a business could turn all that thinking, endless thinking, into doing? To make better decisions. Make a difference. Make the future. Make all this make sense. Not tomorrow, not next week while you think about it a little more, but right now, this moment, this second. Is there a company that can help you do all that? I can think of one.
Maybe you can make retirement happen. After all, you made this vacation happen.
Double points with every purchase?
Cleverly merging promotions.
Love it.
Cross-referencing travel sites. And booking all your flights with those...
Vouchers. I got us bumped.
They were like, oh. But now they're like... Aloha. You aced this vacation. Now get the tips you need to get on track at aceyourretirement.org.
Look into my eyes, you will see what you mean to me. Don't tell me it's not worth trying for. You know it's true. Everything I do it for you. Yeah.
1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, the White House. Just over there at Lafayette Park is a statue of one Major General Andrew Jackson, the 7th President of the United States, arguably one of the most impactful. Think about what he accomplished. He balanced the budget and paid off our debt. No president has done that since. He fought off secession successfully. And keep in mind, too, we had some controversies. The Indian Removal Act, the abolitionist movement, he actually fought against it. However, so many presidents through time, in times of trouble, looked to Andrew Jackson for inspiration.
President Truman is back in Missouri to see daughter Margaret unveil the statue he presented to independence. An almost life-size bronze of his favorite historic American, Andrew Jackson.
Just to characterize Andrew Jackson, I know FDR loved him, Truman worshipped him, Teddy Roosevelt wrote a book about him, Lincoln referred to him constantly.
Right.
Why?
Because he was a leader.
FDR identified with Andrew Jackson when he took on New York special interest. Right on the other side of the statue, FDR in 1937 had his reviewing stand for the inaugural parade, and it was a replica of the Hermitage because FDR identified with Jackson.
From the time Jackson lived here, we've had 15 presidents visit the Hermitage. Theodore Roosevelt visited here and made some wonderful statements about Jackson.
Theodore Roosevelt just worshiped the heroism of Andrew Jackson. He would steal a page from Andrew Jackson in the Battle of Kettle Hill and San Juan Hill in the Spanish-American War. Ride your horse right into the enemy so all your men see your valor. Worst case scenario, you die. Jackson represented that you have to put your life on the line for country.
Abraham Lincoln, when he was elected president, he asked for Andrew Jackson's papers so he could study them and draw on them to write his inaugural address.
And that's what's on that statue, at the foot of his statue. The Union must be preserved.
Harry Truman identified with him because he felt the Boston, New York, Washington society didn't approve of him.
There's this wonderful quote of Truman's where he said he was for the little guy, the guy who had no pull, and that's what a president is supposed to do. And Truman commissioned 2 statues of Jackson, one in Independence, Missouri, and one in Kansas City. And Truman actually came here to measure Jackson's clothes to make sure that the statues were the right size. Reagan was here in 1981 to put a wreath on Jackson's tomb for his birthday that year. You know, in many ways, I see parallels between Reagan and Jackson. They were both sort of outsiders to Washington. They'd both been in politics, but Reagan came to the presidency with a very determined agenda that he got through during his 2 terms, as did Jackson.
Just think, how many presidents looked out that North Portico window at the Andrew Jackson statue for inspiration? A lot. Well, there's one in particular that's most like Andrew Jackson. He actually lives there right now. He's President Donald Trump. And the similarities between him and Jackson did not escape him as he took me and my Fox and Friends co-host on an Oval Office tour. Why did you put that up?
Well, they say that his campaign and his whole thing was most like mine. It was interesting. That was 1828. They used to go back to Ronald Reagan. Now they're going back to Andrew Jackson. But that's the great Andrew Jackson, who actually was a great general, and he was a great president, but a controversial president.
So President Trump sees the similarities between Andrew Jackson and himself. But what about the historians?
Like Donald Trump, he used the technology of his day. Trump uses Twitter. Andrew Jackson pioneered the use of lithography, which is an artist rendering that's mass-produced. And it transformed politics because they could hand you this picture. Remember, most of America was illiterate. They hand you this color picture. This is mine, this is yours, you can take it. Who's that? That's the man running for president we're voting for. His opponent, short, bald, stout, stern looking.
Who are you talking about?
John Quincy Adams. And here's Andrew Jackson, sexy with flowing hair. And what's this? It's the Battle of New Orleans. What's that? He won the Battle of New Orleans. It was as good as TV. So everybody got their own lithograph. So Jackson, like Trump, was into the latest technology.
They're similar in some of their temperamental issues and how Jackson was volatile, could be volatile, and they were both outsiders, but there were different types of outsiders. President Trump was an outsider to politics, and Jackson was a geographic outsider. He was not one of the Virginia aristocrats or an Adams from Massachusetts. He was from the other side of the Allegheny Mountains.
Very much against the elite, Andrew Jackson, as he defined them, because life on the western frontier was different. He knew that people in Boston didn't really understand what it was like to live in western North Carolina.
Many say he was the first celebrity in American history. Big crowds followed him wherever he went, and he warred with his own cabinet like Trump. He warred with the Senate like Trump.
Andrew Jackson despised erroneous news stories, what we call fake news today. But even more than that, he despised any time his reputation was smeared in the public prints. He would just throw a rage. And he spent a lot of his public career seeking revenge on journalists.
Andrew Jackson loved his wife, Rachel, and when he was elected president of the United States, Rachel went to Nashville to buy a dress with all her girlfriends, and they were in these stores, and she found these old stacks of newspapers. They had hidden them from her, and his opponents called her a bigamist and an adulterer. She was a very religious, devout woman, and it broke her heart. She went back to the Hermitage. She went to bed. She died of a heart attack. She never set foot in the White House, and it broke his heart, and it made him angry. And he organized what later became the Jackson Papers. It was a chain of newspapers, and they were vicious, and they went after their political opponents.
What's fascinating, if you leaf through these, are his marginal notes, where he'd read the paper and then he'd write comments in the margins. Is this good or bad? Or there's one article in particular that really took him to task, and there's a great big X through the whole article in ink.
Donald Trump brags on being a counterpuncher. Well, so was Andrew Jackson. In battle, as you know very well, because you write about it, and in politics, and also in duels. And Andrew Jackson was in a duel with a perfect shot as his opponent. He let him shoot first. He opened his chest and said, "Go for it." And the perfect shot shot and apparently missed. Andrew Jackson didn't even flinch. He coolly, deliberately aimed and shot the man dead. Afterwards, they learned he had been shot 2 inches from his heart, and he carried that bullet till he died.
Up next, Senator Mike Lee says some of the most influential founding fathers have been written out of history. He will tell us why.
We're on a mission to show drip coffee drinkers it's time to wake up to Keurig.
Wakey, wakey, rise and shine.
How are you?
Well, watch this. I pop that in there, press brew, that's it.
So rich.
I love it.
That's why you should be a Keurig man.
Full-bodied.
Are you sure you're describing the coffee and not me?
Booking a flight at the last minute doesn't have to be expensive. Just go to Priceline. It's the best place to book a flight a few days before my trip and still save up to 40%. Just tap and go. For the best savings on flights, go to Priceline.
My wish was a clubhouse, but we call it the Wish House. People visit national parks from all over the world.
Food tastes better when you don't have to cook it.
He's just supposed to be my dog. I don't know why.
We're proud that on behalf of our owners, the Subaru Share the Love event will have donated over $115 million in just 10 years. Get 0% financing for 63 months on select models. Plus, we'll donate $250 to charity.
The great emperor penguin migration, trekking 100 miles inland to their breeding grounds. Except for these two fellows.
This time next year, I'm gonna be sitting on an egg.
I think we're getting close.
Make a U-turn.
U-turn?
Recalculating.
Man, we're never gonna breed.
Just give it a second.
You will arrive in 92 days.
No, nope. You know I'm gonna follow? My instincts.
As long as GPS can still get you lost, you can count on Geico saving folks money.
I'm breeding, man.
15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
We go inside Eisenhower's final days in office and the final mission of an American giant. Watch as Brett Baer anchors 3 Days in January, tonight.
Americans are the most generous people on the planet. It's part of America's spirit. It's what makes our country so great. Right now, there are millions of people in Africa who are going without food. Young children are the worst off. The UN is calling it the largest humanitarian crisis since 1945. For the first time, a group of American aid organizations are joining together to raise money, awareness, and hope for those who are suffering. This is a country of compassion. It's a place where we help because it's the right thing to do. It's in that spirit that we're asking you to step up and support the Global Emergency Response Coalition's efforts.
Support the Global Emergency Response Coalition by going to globalemergencyresponse.org today.
Shortly before 9 a.m., fashion designer Gianni Versace was shot on the steps of his villa.
Pronounced Versace. Singer? That's Liberace.
He was a creator. Everything you see around us, this house, this company, was his life. I will not allow that man, that nobody, to kill my brother twice.
So what brings you to Miami?
I know people.
Oh, yeah?
Versace.
What do you do for work?
I worked for my father on his pineapple plantations in the Philippines.
I'm a fashion student.
I'm a stockbroker. I'm building the sets for the Titanic.
I was married. You can't do it, can you?
Can't what?
Stop lying.
Andrew Cunanan, 27 years old. He's killed 4 men.
This world has wasted me, and yet this world also made you, Mr. Versace, into a star. We're the same. The only difference is that you got lucky.
The Assassination of Gianni Versace premieres Wednesday, January 17th on FX.
Welcome back to Andrew Jackson, Hero Under Fire. I'm Brian Kilmeade. You know, Senator Mike Lee says that many important historical figures in our past are being whitewashed in today's politically correct times. He sat down with me to discuss his new book, Written Out of History, The Forgotten Founders Who Fought Big Government. Senator, in your book, Written Out of History, you remarkably go over them. What are some of the main things with Andrew Jackson's experiencing right now? How they want to take one of these great American characters, presidents, generals, and want to recast him. Does that bother you?
Sure. Anytime we take someone in history, especially an important historical figure like Andrew Jackson, and we try to denigrate him as all bad, or even if we take someone and say they were all good, we're setting people up for disappointment. We're setting people up to be misinformed about history. The fact is, Andrew Jackson, like so many other people in our history, wasn't perfect, but he was a great man, and he did a lot of things that had a deep impact on the American people.
And when he died, he was considered a great president. What happened to Jackson now that didn't happen then?
So many people today want to put our modern stamp on historical figures. It's one of the reasons why in my book, Written Out of History, I talk a lot about Aaron Burr. A lot of people dismiss Aaron Burr. He's just the guy who shot Alexander Hamilton. That's all we know of him. When in fact, he did a lot to stand up for the rights of the individual. And you have to know that whole story. So too with Andrew Jackson. I mean, look, he has literally physically impacted the footprint of Washington, D.C. He had the Treasury building built so as to obstruct the view from the White House of the Capitol.
He was a guy that was literally a true American. I mean, brought up, born here, fights in the Revolutionary War here, wins one of the key battles in American history here, and then becomes president here, a senator, a congressman. What's so bad?
Well, people can't handle that because they can't handle certain things about his life, things that don't coincide well, that don't mesh well with the way we approach things today. The fact that people committed sins back then that are no longer around today makes it really easy for us to cast judgment on them. We have to remember a lot of the good things that he did do. For example, he would actually read legislation and review it for constitutionality. He would veto legislation if he thought it exceeded Congress's power under the Constitution. That almost doesn't happen today, and yet it needs to. We would do well to follow his example.
Andrew Jackson thought the founders were being forgotten. He thought that it was too much about Virginia and Washington and Massachusetts. What about everybody else?
That's right. They forget about the fact that he helped a lot of people feel more connected to their government. He helped a lot of people feel like there was someone in Washington standing up for them.
If you look at the war in which he wins the key battle, the future of our country is definitely in the balance. So does he not deserve credit for that? The other things that we look at that are wrong now, should we discredit what he did then?
We certainly can't discount what he did, and what he did was heroic. You know, to this day, there are lasting reminders of the War of 1812 inside the Capitol. In the Majority Leader's office in the Senate, there is a crack in a fireplace that was there. That crack originated from a fire started by the British during the War of 1812. That fire heated the stone to the point that it lost some of its structural integrity. We can still see that crack there today. The reason that that crack is limited, the reason that that war didn't end differently, had a whole lot to do with Andrew Jackson.
What concerns you most about the way we're viewing history today through the modern lens?
When we sanitize history, when we take certain figures and we try to denigrate them, marginalize them, write them out of history, if you will, we lose part of our heritage. We are destined to repeat that portion of history that we forget. And so that's why if we write people off, people like Andrew Jackson, simply because their story or certain aspects of their life might offend us today, we run the risk of ignoring their great contributions and run the risk of avoiding some of the same mistakes they might have made. Every time we identify someone as having made a mistake, and because they made a mistake, they're unworthy of being remembered, we're going to be forgetting about a whole lot of people. I mean, we'll be writing a whole lot of presidents, basically all of them, out of history, if that's the standard.
Up next, how could one of the most revered presidents in his day be so controversial in our day? Hear why some people want monuments to Jackson torn down. That story when we return.
I am totally blind. And Non-24 can make me show up too early or too late, or make me feel like I'm not really there. Talk to your doctor and call 844-234-2424.
There's a new place for senior care, a place with flexible meal plans and 24-hour room service. A place where seniors get the care they need in the comfort of home. Home Instead Senior Care.
One fateful day, two of Mitsubishi's safest siblings were separated. The Roberts family adopted the Outlander, while Mike and Jenny took home the Outlander Sport. But no matter where their journeys take them, they'll always be part of America's safest crossover family. The 2018 Mitsubishi Outlander and Outlander Sport, starting at $22,995. Get $3,500 cash back and make no payments for 90 days or 0% APR for 84 months.
It's easy to think that all money managers are pretty much the same. But while some push high commission investment products, Fisher Investments avoids them. Some advisors have hidden and layered fees. Fisher Investments never does. And while some advisors are happy to earn commissions from you, whether you do well or not, Fisher Investments fees are structured so we do better when you do better. Maybe that's why most of our clients come from other money managers. Fisher Investments, clearly better money management.
He's a NASCAR champion who's faced thousands of drivers. She's a world-class swimmer who stared down the best in her sport. But for both of them, the most challenging opponent was
PE blood clots in my lung. It was really scary.
A DVT in my leg.
I had to learn all I could to help protect myself.
My doctor and I chose Xarelto.
Xarelto, to help keep me protected.
Xarelto is a latest generation blood thinner that's proven to treat and reduce the risk of DVT and PE blood clots from happening again. In clinical studies, almost 98% of patients on Xarelto did not experience another DVT or PE.
Here's how Xarelto works.
Xarelto works differently. Warfarin interferes with at least 6 blood clotting factors. Xarelto is selective, targeting just one critical factor interacting with less of your body's natural blood clotting function. Don't stop taking Xarelto without talking to your doctor, as this may increase risk of blood clots. While taking, you may bruise more easily or take longer for bleeding to stop. It may increase your risk of bleeding if you take certain medicines. Xarelto can cause serious and in rare cases fatal bleeding. Get help right away for unexpected bleeding, unusual bruising, or tingling. If you've had spinal anesthesia, watch for back pain or any nerve or muscle-related signs or symptoms. Do not take Xarelto if you have an artificial heart valve or abnormal bleeding. Tell your doctor before all planned medical or dental procedures and before starting Xarelto about any conditions such as kidney, liver, or bleeding problems.
You've got to learn all you can
to help protect yourself from DVT and PE blood clots. Talk to your doctor about Xarelto. There's more to know.
I will not allow nobody to kill my brother twice.
What do you do for work?
I worked for my father on his pineapple plantations in the Philippines.
I'm a fashion student.
I'm a stockbroker. I'm building the sets for the Titanic.
I was married. You can't do it, can you?
Can't what?
Stop lying.
Andrew Cunanan, 27 years old. He's killed 4 men.
The Assassination of Gianni Versace premieres Wednesday, January 17th on FX.
It's the most wonderful time of the year.
$50 gift card for them, $10 bonus card for you. Only at Applebee's. Now that's eating good in the neighborhood.
Fox News Channel brings you an all-American New Year's from New York City and around the country. Catch the biggest live performances and join the conversation. Kennedy and Jesse Waters bring you it all live from Times Square. Coverage begins New Year's Eve at 8 p.m. Eastern on Fox News Channel.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. You know, over the past few months, we've seen controversy and debate break out all over America's past as activists try to convince local governments to remove statues, mostly of controversial historical figures, most of them monuments to Confederate leaders. Most notably, the plan to remove Confederate General Robert E. Lee's statue in Charlottesville, Virginia. It was one of the flashpoints that set off violent clashes between neo-Nazi groups and anti-fascist counter-protesters back in August. But even before all the chaos erupted, I went down to take a look at the controversy surrounding the statue of the man credited with saving New Orleans more than 2 centuries ago. Major General Andrew Jackson. What he did is still mind-boggling. He put together an army in a matter of weeks that held off the finest fighting force in the world at that time, the British Army, and saved a city. Honestly, saved a country in the big picture. But yet some are saying, not impressed. We want to diminish Jackson, and it's going to start by taking this statue down.
As we approach the 300th year in New Orleans, cannot go forward until we erase that negative past.
Malcolm Suber leads a group called Take 'Em Down NOLA. They've been successfully fighting for the removal of statues across the city. He now has his sights set on Andrew Jackson.
We took down 4 of the Confederate statues that were proposed by Mayor Mitch Landrieu. But our position from the very beginning has been that all monuments to white supremacy, to slaveholding, must be removed from our public square.
You don't look at Andrew Jackson as a hero?
Andrew Jackson is probably the most hated of the statues that we have in this city.
Why?
Because Andrew Jackson was not only a slaveholder who held more than 300 Africans in slavery, but he was also the architect of the Trail of Tears, which meant that he was in charge of the murder of more than 10,000 Native people. And for those reasons, we don't think that he needs any veneration whatsoever.
Do you think it's proper to put today's values on people from 200 years ago?
Of course. I mean, we wouldn't be fighting this fight today if we didn't think it was proper.
Your history book would be blank, Malcolm. Slavery, despicable. The way treatment of Indians in certain cases, indisputably bad. Gotcha. But if you're going to look back on history and try to cleanse it, we'll have no history.
We're not cleansing it. We're saying that in public spaces that we control, now, today, we decide what goes in our public spaces. And that is not to be decided by some racists who put it up to venerate white supremacy.
You don't see any positive in Andrew Jackson?
Not in me. I don't. I don't see anything aside from acknowledging that he was the 7th president, that he was an adequate general, but a despicable human being. And we don't honor despicable human beings. That's my opinion.
As statues come down all across the South, including New Orleans, some residents are fighting to keep Jackson in Jackson Square.
Right now, there's a big effort for the last 2 years to take down several monuments, about 20, of NOLA history.
Andrew Jackson was a fantastic hero in saving New Orleans, and the world owes him a lot in the sense of this country, which is freedom.
But why would some people want to take it down?
Well, you know, I don't think anyone really understands. You go out there where the battle happened, there are plaques. And the plaques say that 450 men of color fought under Andrew Jackson. So here you have people saying take him down because he owned slaves. And when this battle was won, opened up America, really. New Orleans became a city that thrived.
You don't erase history. History is what everybody wants to read in books. You don't burn books.
Andrew Jackson came down here with a bullet in him and dysentery and figured out how to build a forkade about 9 miles south of New Orleans to stop the British from coming in. 15,000 British soldiers he stopped with a ragtag group of Louisianans. So it's a monument to Louisiana. You put the general on there, but you're really honoring everybody that fought.
How did we get to this point that you have to fight to keep history?
Brian, I'd ask the same question, because this has gone through 100 years of history.
He fought a battle that saved the country, and he's being honored for that in New Orleans, and he's being honored for that in other parts of the country that recognize how important that battle was. As the years go by, we typically forget how important that was in 1815 when he won. But now we want to judge him by what we need today, as opposed to forgetting what he contributed to the country.
All right, that's all the time we have. Thanks so much for joining us. And don't forget to check out my new book, Andrew Jackson and the Miracle of New Orleans. Hope you like it. And if you have the chance, do yourself a favor and plan a visit to the Hermitage. You can walk around the very grounds where Andrew Jackson lived and thrived in his remarkable life and learn more about the hero under fire.
From the White House in the office of the President of the United States, we present an address by Dwight D. Eisenhower. This is the farewell address for President Eisenhower, whose 8 years as chief executive come to an end at noon Friday. Mr. Eisenhower has chosen this time for his final speech. Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States.
Good evening, my fellow Americans. In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The military-industrial complex. It's one of the most famous phrases ever spoken by a United States president.
The sky rained a teeming downpour of destruction.
Google it, and you will get millions of results.
I do worry about America's military-industrial complex using any excuse to ramp up the war machine again.
In the more than half-century since President Eisenhower said it, it's been regularly invoked by all sorts of people in all sorts of places. But for all its use, is it truly understood?
I would not trust anything being said by the military-industrial complex of this great country.
Indeed, the meaning has changed through time and continues to change.
He said, beware the military-industrial complex.
I don't believe that the question of the military-industrial complex was quite the phrase, even after the speech, that it is today. In other words, I think it grew.
The line was part of Eisenhower's farewell address, delivered 3 days before John F. Kennedy took office. In it, he was trying to offer some hard-won wisdom.
Bureaucracies they have interests. They will try to force choices on the American people. It's a very powerful speech, as you know. The sadness of what went wrong in the 20th century really permeates the speech in many ways.
The power and depth in this speech are part of why I decided to take my own look at the man and his final days in office in my new book, 3 Days in January, Dwight Eisenhower's Final Mission. Eisenhower was a forward-looking man who'd seen a lot, and as meaningful as the speech was then, it still speaks to us today.
In your grandfather's farewell speech, who was he reaching out to, do you think?
The last paragraph of that speech is my absolute favorite thing that's ever come out of his mouth. It starts, "We pray the peoples of all faiths, all races, all nations have their great human needs satisfied," and it goes on. I think he was really appealing to the world. I think he was really hoping that everybody could find a way to live in peace.
Eisenhower, by draining the swamp, so to speak, of crisis, he intended to restore a sense of well-being and normalcy in America. And that was something that he was pursuing as a Republican. He felt this was an alternative to the Democratic program.
The Eisenhower era is often painted as a sleepy time where most Americans lived quiet, prosperous lives. But in fact, it was a roiling time in American history. The Cold War had begun, and the nuclear age was upon us. For all the surface calm, it was an age defined by anxiety. No one knew if another war would start, one that could end humanity. Throw in domestic issues, civil rights, and recessions, and the 50s weren't always the happy days some think they were. And that is why those 3 days in January, a transition from Eisenhower to Kennedy, from Republican to Democrat, from the old guard to the new frontier, were a crucial time in our history.
To turn over the keys to this closet probably gave him some pause. He didn't know Kennedy very well, and there was a lot of rhetoric during that campaign that led him to be concerned about perhaps the beginning of a period where fear would play a much bigger role in national life.
The times were indeed changing, and that was both a promise and a threat.
Ike's farewell speech has gone down in history as, I think, a caution to those who listened. The struggles that America had, talking clearly about Russia, but also the struggles within America that were brought about by technological revolution that was occurring, and the lack of balance.
I thought that it was just ordinary speech. Like many people thought about President Eisenhower, not one of the greatest world leader, but just the president who could just play golf. And no, I think that it is one of the wisest speech.
Perhaps it's time for a new look at Eisenhower. Warrior, president, American. A man whose words and actions still have something to teach us.
He was leaving a legacy in that speech. And I think every person who's the slightest bit interested in our civic culture should read it.
There's a great deal of resonance in the farewell address. It almost works every time there's an administration's change. There is a very big temptation just to do your job, leave on a high note, and leave it all for the next guy to clean up and sort out.
Two unique crossovers, the roomy Mitsubishi Outlander and the adventurous Outlander Sport. Both part of America's safest CUV family. Get $3,500 cash back and make no payments for 90 days or 0% APR for 84 months.
Coaching means making tough choices.
Jim, you're in.
But when you have high blood pressure and need cold medicine that works fast, the choice is simple. Coricidin HBP is the #1 brand that gives powerful cold symptom relief without raising your blood pressure. Coricidin HBP.
After Mom's hospital and rehab stay, we didn't think we'd get another chance to celebrate a holiday with her. But Visiting Angels has given us the greatest gift possible. Mom at home, happy, well cared for, and most importantly, safe. Sarah's not just a caregiver, she's part of the family, helping us keep our traditions alive.
Visiting Angels, America's choice in senior home care.
Americans are the most generous people on the planet. Helping others is ingrained in our spirit. It's who we are. When there's pain in the world, Americans respond. Our impact reaches far and wide. By giving, we can inspire hope when all hope has been lost and make the world a better place.
Support the Global Emergency Response Coalition by going to globalemergencyresponse.org today.
My shows must be about life. Life is precious.
Fashion icon Gianni Versace has been shot dead.
Andrew Cunanan killing for the 5th time.
We will stop this murder spree.
The assassination of Gianni Versace, January 17th on FX.
It's a frozen world, but right now it's thawing out.
Every day counts out here in the summer.
You work till the sun goes down.
Summer is a season of opportunity, and I've got to grab it.
This is life without a clock.
You always got to think ahead. If you don't produce, you die.
Life Below Zero, The Thaw. New season starts Thursday, January 4th at 9 on National Geographic.
We now stand 10 years past the midpoint of a century that has witnessed 4 major wars among great nations. 3 of these involved our own country.
Dwight David Eisenhower was born in Denison, Texas on October 14, 1890, the third of 7 brothers. His parents, David and Ida, called him Ike, a nickname that would stick. The family moved to Abilene, Kansas in 1892. They moved into this home in 1896. For years, there was no running water or indoor plumbing.
He learned to like the archetypical American. He never had a elitism or a sense of snobbery about him. To the contrary, he was somebody who really liked the type of the hardworking American.
He graduated from high school in 1909, and in 1911, after scoring well in an entrance exam, was accepted to West Point. Out of 164 students, Ike finished 61st academically, and a dismal 125th in discipline. But he was very likable, and one commander after another would see his potential as he rose through the ranks. His first assignment in 1915 was at Fort Sam Houston in San Antonio, where he trained enlisted men. It was also the place where he met 18-year-old Mamie Dowd from Denver. They married in 1916. Ike was assigned in 1919 to Fort Meade in Maryland. There, tragedy struck. Ike and Mamie's first child, Dowd, or Icky as they called him, died of scarlet fever at the age of 3. As Ike moved from one assignment to the next over the years, he became known as one of the most efficient and hard-working officers around. December 7th, 1941.